Hello and welcome. This is the After Credits podcast. We're back after a little bit of a hiatus. Unfortunately, Robert will not be joining us for a few more.
Probably a while. Probably.
Yeah, he was supposed to be in this episode, but he has bad internet where he is, so you're stuck with us two again. Lucky you. Right.
Maybe.
So, new format. The summer blockbusters are over, cocksuckers. It's over. It's done. We're done. So now our format is going to go to what we kind of originally planned for the podcast because we got a bit bogged down with the big hitters this summer, which we haven't even finished recording yet, but oh well. So instead of big blockbusters, we'll cover new releases as they come out, I reckon, and then we have this is the new format. We are going to do a kind of weekly diary of our films that we've watched. These can be old films, new films, whatever, just as we've seen them that week. So it might not necessarily reflect what's going on in the film world at that time. We're going to mention those in like small segments throughout the episode, and then we're going to have an overarching theme. So, say our film diary films are probably not going to be the same between me, Brandon, and Robert. But that's kind of the idea, is that we kind of talk about films or recommend films to each other, or yada yada yada, or hopefully if we've all seen them, we can discuss things about them. The other thing is it gives you an opportunity to say what you would like to see. So we give you a little taster in the episode, and then if you like something we mention, you can vote in a poll on Spotify or stick in the comments, and you can say, I want to see more of this. So, for example, today we're going to talk about the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. But if you want a whole episode dedicated to that, then we'll do that. And you can have your little say, which would be nice. So yeah, we'll have that. So how that is going to work in today's episode is we're going to talk about some of the films that we've seen recently in the cinema, just on the tail end of the summer blockbusters. I'm going to talk about a few films that aren't new out. I think Brandon might as well. But we have every week, I think, as well, we're going to have a dedicated topic, a dedicated film that all three of us are going to watch, and that's going to be like the second half of the episode. So if you're not interested in the first half, you can skip to that bit. There'll probably be a timestamp somewhere if I've done my job right. But today's episode, the smaller segments can be a surprise. You can find out what those are. The big segment is going to be on Ahsoka because the Ahsoka TV show is out in 10 days as of recording. So we thought we'd get a little head start and we'd go right back. We'd go back to the beginning where it all began, and we'd go and watch the first
Appearance.
the first appearance of Ahsoka in the Clone Wars movie, which, well, I was going to start talking about, but I've almost already ruined the format, but I'm going to leave that till later.
Leave that for the main event.
Yeah, that's the main event. So look forward to that. If that's what you're here for, go click this timestamp. Yep. And if not, I think we should begin with
Turtles.
Insidious, maybe?
Insidious? Yeah, we can go to Insidious.
Why don't we do Insidious? Because we did a watch party, me and Brendan and one of our friends did a watch party, the first two Insidious films, because I'd never seen them. Our other friend had never seen them, and our other friend's the dickhead in the comments that you've probably seen. He's a mong. And Brandon had seen the Insidious films, so that's why we watched them. So I've now seen the first two Insidious films, and Brandon's seen them again. So I'm in the process of getting into horror films. You're more into horror films already.
I like them, but I'm very picky when it comes to horror because I've got a very narrow taste. I think that's the best way to describe it because I'm not a fan of slashers or gore fests or torture porn and stuff like that. That's just not what I'm into.
Right.
That's what Saw is, though. You know, that's what Saw is. That's what people call it. I'm more into the sort of
for some reason I'd forgotten that was a saying for like violence, and I thought you were just actually talking about torture porn.
No.
I know this is not a child-friendly podcast, but fucking hell, bro.
No. But I'm more into the sort of psychological or supernatural kind of vibe. And Insidious, I would have considered up there as one of my favourites, but I won't lie, I still like the films, the first two at least that we're going to talk about, but I don't. They weren't as good as I remembered, I must say. I don't know if it's because the way we were watching them, and we were kind of having a laugh throughout,
Yeah,
or
I think saying we
you
watched
know,
the films was it's probably a generous word, but
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's more like a commentary rather. We should have recorded it. That'd have been a laugh, but yeah, I think that's kind of my take because I remember being terrified of them when I was younger. When I say younger, I'm talking maybe like 16, and now that I'm 24, maybe it's because I've seen them before. I've seen the first one maybe a couple times. The second one, I think this was my second time seeing.
right.
So yeah, it was. I still think they're good, especially for the horror genre, because I think it's really hard to come across good horror films with like good stories and characters and stuff and lore. But I don't. It wasn't as scary as I remember it being, to be honest. I
Yep.
don't know. This is your first viewing, so what was your sort of take on
My
it?
take. Uh, I think I preferred the first film to the second film.
Okay.
I I thought there was some weird like regressions in the second film that felt like they should have been improved on, but weren't.
You talked about like the
Uh,
lore that was kind of
Specifically, yeah, there's a little bit the lore. Generally I kind of like the lore actually. That's probably my highlight for the series so far.
yeah
It's kind of the lore. There's some wacky stuff in there like fucking Geppetto, Darth Maul, but um, yeah, that was weird. But like apart from that, I kind of liked the lore they were going for in the two films.
yeah.
The
But
only thing,
you were saying like in the second film they did like some time travel
yeah,
type
they
of
did kind
stuff.
of there's like the spirit realm doesn't have the same time flow sort of thing. So like Josh goes back to his younger self and stuff like that. And that sounds like a really cool idea, and I think I like it in principle more than I do in execution. Like I
Right.
wish they'd fleshed out that a bit. By fleshed out, I don't mean explain more. I mean maybe just drop hints as to how it works or something like that, because obviously
Yeah.
part of the intrigue is the mystery, and I think that's probably if I was going to improve it, that would be like the kind of priority would be to preserve the mystery of it, because obviously it's you just explain the rules, it's not intriguing anymore.
Yeah.
But maybe like I don't know, I honestly don't know how you would do it, but I haven't thought about it much. But just like some way of kind of establishing that this was because they kind of make the point that this was always an ability. It's just they didn't have access to it or something. But like,
Yeah, like they hid it from him because
yeah,
he was going to be possessed or whatever.
but I don't know. I do like the stuff though of like, oh, there's in the first movie especially. I like the aspect of, oh, you have these powers and you've always had them, like you say, you've always had them, but they're dormant, and we've made you forget.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that I really like that concept, and obviously it passes on to his son and stuff. I really like that, and I wish they'd maybe carried on not the same thing, but obviously something as interesting as that into the second film. But
Yeah.
by regression specifically, I meant the acting for me. I
Right.
don't know
Right.
why, but the acting in the second film felt a lot worse than the first film. And I don't know if it's because they were just more comfortable doing what they wanted to do because they kind of already had the first film under their belt. It felt a little bit more like forced. It felt a bit more like wacky, that kind of thing. Like a lot of the acting felt more overacted than it did in the first film.
Is there examples of people you're referring to, or just in
Honestly,
general?
honestly, I think every one of the main cast was guilty of it in the second film.
Right.
I didn't not notice it for like because the thing is, I never noticed it in the first film, and I noticed it in the second film. And obviously, that could be how we watched them or whatever, but or maybe I was just looking out for it in the second film. But I don't know why I would be, but not in the first film. I don't
Yeah.
know. I didn't pay attention enough to be able to explain it well, but it caught my eye enough to be jarring in the moment. Put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. That's fair. That's fair. I kind of I agree with Dalton in the second one. I definitely saw him. I know he's a kid, but I'm going to judge him all the same. I definitely noticed him having some bad lines and stuff like that. I thought Josh overall was pretty decent in the second one,
Right.
but I
I
suppose he
will
had
say,
the most to work with,
did
So
yeah. I mean, I think Josh was probably the better part of the second one, but yeah, I think probably it wasn't, the film wasn't guilty of it the whole time, but there was enough moments of it throughout the film that it felt like that.
yeah,
So I'll give it a strike off for that, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely like the first one more, I thought. But having said that, neither film was as scary as I thought they were going to be.
yeah. But again, that might just be because of how we watched them as well. Like we were literally like laughing at parts and
Thing is,
taking
right?
the piss.
To be brutally honest to myself, I'm not good with horror, even in a like jokey set. You know, like
Yeah.
I watched The Conjuring like at like a friend's house. Obviously, I was like 16, 17 or whatever. But the second one scared the shit out of me, even when we were
Hmm.
in the group, like having a laugh at it. I didn't get that at all from these two. And
Right.
obviously, like you say, you thought these films were scary when you were 16, so maybe it's time to go back for a rewatch on those films, and maybe they'll be the same.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
do have a feeling that the Conjuring films are generally more scary than the Insidious films, the
Oh,
first two.
I would agree. I would agree. I think
Yeah,
they're better in general.
right.
Um, but I think the progression is Insidious first, then Conjuring, because I believe that's how James Wan directed them.
Made
Like he
them. Right.
directed Insidious first, right, and
Yeah,
then Conjuring. So he got better as time goes on, and he's still doing good work. I think. I think he did *Malignant*. I think. Let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure he did, and I really like that film. That came out last year, I think.
yeah. I will
Um,
say, second film had Carl though, so that was a big bonus.
it
Carl
did.
was great. That horrible, horrible Star Wars bloody fake beard as well.
Yeah,
That was not good. But I liked his character, and I mean, I do think some of this stuff got a bit like this is going to sound bad, right? But I bring this up every time we talk about horror films and how if you show me the monster, they get less scary.
yeah.
And I get the kind of point was to kind of humanize this spirit, right? Because
Hmm.
the one in the first film was more of a demon. This one is a spirit, right?
Yeah.
The problem with that is that the way they humanize it kind of takes out of the scare factor for me because I'm like, oh, this isn't an unknown anymore. This is like a bullied kid who grows up to be like a killer transvestite, and that
Yeah.
that like rolling around in my head as I'm watching it, I'm like, well, it's no longer scaring me. Whereas in the first film, like the way that film ends, where Elise takes a photo of Josh and she sees what we know is now Parker Crane, but what we thought was the woman in the dress, that's much scarier to me and much cooler than
Yeah.
going, oh yeah, this is actually a kid that got bullied by his mum and then killed her for
It,
dressing
w-
him up as a girl.
it was absolutely not the plan as well, because when you watch the first one, it is a woman actress that's playing that character. And then they must have thought in the second one, okay, how can we spice this up? How can we make this a little bit more unique? And then they went with the Parker
Which is fair
stuff,
enough,
which
but
is
like,
fair, yeah. But
yeah,
yeah, I appreciate it more when it ties in as if it's all planned. But I suppose if you're
yeah.
making a first film,
The
you can
only thing
never
I'll say
know.
to that is at least they took a swing and a miss and it wasn't boring. Like it wasn't something you would expect, I
Yeah,
guess. At least I'd rather they took a swing and a miss than just did something run of the mill, I guess.
because
But
I actually prefer the Parker over I can't remember what they gave the name to the Darth Maul creature. They gave it a name, though I can't remember. We'll just call it Giuseppe.
just
I prefer Parker over him just because I don't like. I see your point. When you know too much about them, it takes away from the scary factor. But I also want to learn about the creature.
yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
I want to know about it at least.
I think part of that is the kind of I like it when it's more kind of ethereal or kind of like, oh, there's like some things that are more powerful than you can comprehend and you have to deal with those. And that's kind of what the demon felt like because they walk into the room and it's just standing there and it's like, yeah, what's up? I'm just waiting for your fucking kid to like die in the
Yeah,
spirit world
yeah.
basically. I'm going to take him. That felt really like an overhanging presence where you're like,
No,
fuck,
yeah, 100%.
like this
I
is something
totally
they
agree with
can't
that.
compete with. Whereas this film, the second one, kind of just delved into, oh, just stab him with a tranquilizer, and we don't really have to worry about Parker
Right.
because he wants to stay in the body. And obviously, you have other spirits knocking about, but those are just kind of side gigs. So I much
Yeah.
preferred the like essence of the first film of
Yeah.
like, oh, this is something that we just like Elise sees it and she's like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck. Like I
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
prefer that. But Elise, she's great in both films, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, man. She deserves to be the main character.
Doesn't surprise me that yeah, because I didn't know that she goes on to guess be like a through line through these
Yeah.
films that they've made. But I was saying to Brandon, because obviously I'm not aware, but according to Brandon, the next three films are all prequels.
I'm certain they are. Maybe the fifth one's a sequel, but
Right.
the
'Cause
definitely three and four are prequels. I
I
swear.
one aspect of the second film I quite liked is kind of maybe the little shake up where they're like, we can do seancey things and we can do ghost hunting things in the real world, and at the same time, Elise is like on the ghost's case in the spirit world, and I was like, that's kind of a cool, like, you've not seen that before, I guess.
Yeah,
I kind of like that, and I maybe would have rather that they'd done sequels to do with like solving these paranormal investigations, and
yeah,
as they're doing it, Elise is helping them in the spirit world, and you kind of have this crossover constantly, where you have people who can cross over, and you have Elise that's stuck in one, and the guys that are stuck in the other. And I
yeah.
really like that as opposed to, well, I guess whatever they've done, I haven't seen, but I think that's a really cool idea. And obviously, it's probably not in tone with the first two films, but you could do like an Alien Aliens, where you're like, we'll make a spin off that's more like psychological thriller rather than horror film.
Yeah.
And I would quite like that, to see that. I thought that's actually where they were going towards the end of the film, and then it just cuts. But yeah, I thought that was a much more interesting
I've got it
concept.
here that it goes 3, 4, 1, 2, 5. That's the order, timeline wise.
Okay, so 5 is a sequel then.
So 5's the sequel, which I
Oh,
guess makes sense because I'm the Darth Maul creatures in that, so
right, okay. Fair
makes a
enough.
comeback.
Well, I've heard it's not good, but I might watch it anyway, and we'll see.
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, why not? Which is like, why not? We've already started.
But yeah, anything you'd like to say about the Insidious film?
I think honestly, my favorite part is the sound design and the music. I think they use that really well. Um, Especially like Tiptoe for the Window. Like that song is a creepy song, man, and they use it really well.
I will say, I don't know if it's just because we were watching it in a more comedic, like in a group, and it was
Yeah,
just funny, but there was a few times in the film where I was like, I think they're trying to make me think this is scary, but I'm just
yeah,
laughing because this is funny and
yeah.
goofy. Like the little kid just jiving to the fucking record, that was really funny. And then she goes to like grab his boots, and he just jumps out the cupboard, doesn't touch her, and just jumps out and goes "Rah!" and just fucks off. That was like that was comedy gold. Like there's a few things like that where I just thought, I feel like I
Yeah.
was supposed to be scared, but that was fucking hilarious.
What would you say? Okay, right. Like to end it, what would you say is the best scene out of the two films? Then, like pick a scene from each film that you remember being pretty pretty good. Because for me, the first one is like you mentioned earlier, is when he's in the bedroom and he's pointing, like the shadows pointing at the kid. Like that's like a cool image.
I
You know,
really
where
liked the kind of, I can't remember if it was a follow-on scene. I think it might have been where Elise and her little cronies are standing in the room, and she looks up to the ceiling in like the
starts
dark room,
drawing.
and she starts drawing. And she's like,
Yeah,
red this, red face, black ass, black
yeah,
cock, black feet, like that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Um, I really like that.
yeah. I
Uh,
like that too. Because again, it's the unknown, right? It's like, oh,
yeah,
what's
I also really liked the ending to that film. I really thought
mm,
the
nice
idea
little
to,
twist.
because I know obviously I don't know what their expectations for the film were. I like you say, I don't think they planned for the sequel they got,
Well, it was solo budget, right?
but I think it was $1.8 million or something, which is impressive because it's a decent looking film.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, it's like one set. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, but I
they
really
made
like
they
that
did the
scene.
most.
It's a shame that Elise had to die before it, but I really like that scene where she takes the photo and then she realizes and then she picks up the camera. I like stuff like that. That was good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just double
But yeah,
checking
so
the.
what would you score the first, second film, or just like general terms? Like, would you recommend which one
If
more or to who?
if I was to rate them compared to films in general, I'd give them both around about a 6, to be honest. But in horror terms, probably like a high 7. Like because
Okay.
like if it's hard because it's like to me, I like to judge films in their own demographic. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to compare Insidious to Bloody Oppenheimer. You know what I mean? Like of course Bloody Oppenheimer is going to be a better film, like clearly. But if I'm to judge Insidious in its own genre and realm compared to like Conjuring, the Thing, like stuff like that, then I think it's above average for sure.
Okay.
And I think it's become iconic as the years have come on because they've made 5 films, like, like it's not bad,
I I think I agree with your scores. I would give it
Yeah,
a 6, probably. Both of them around about a 6,
yeah,
6.5, and then bump it up, I guess, for horror.
because they have enough to be past a 5 because it brings that lore that's unique, and they have interesting characters like Elaine and Josh, you know, and in my opinion Parker. Like you've got those interesting characters there, so it's like it's better than the average horror film. Like I can't think of an example, but there's plenty out there, So
Well,
yeah, I'm happy with that.
we do have another horror film on our list, but
Ooh,
I think we should maybe shake it up for you folks.
yeah,
So why don't we go talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant
Mutant
Mayhem?
Mayhem. Oh,
Now, Robert is a big fan of this film. We've heard.
yeah. It's a shame he's not here to talk about it, but you might thin the line. You might talk about it in the line.
Down the line, we will do at least a segment with Robert on this film,
Yeah,
if not more. The fact he's not here means I don't have much to say because I thought this film was very average.
yeah. You liked it the least out of the three of us,
Yes.
and Robert liked it the most, and I fairly enjoyed it. I gave it about a 7.5 roughly. Um, yeah, I thought it was an interesting new take on the turtles, but also at the point where it's not too much of a difference. It's a good amount of uniqueness to what they've already made before. And for me, my history with the turtles, I've only seen the Michael Bay ones and the CGI 2007, I want to call it
Yeah,
one,
probably.
and I watched the 2D animation in like 2003 and 4, I think that came out. That was my favorite version of them back then. Um, so yeah, so I've always grew up with them, but they were never like my thing. You know what I mean? They were never. They were kind of like Transformers, where it's like I was into them, but I wasn't Star Wars or superheroes level. You know what I mean? I wasn't that level of fandom with them. But yeah, I don't know where do you want to begin with this film then?
I think I'm just going to give my very honest take of I don't think I like this era of the Turtles as much.
So the origin, essentially.
I think I don't really care about the origin too much. I like that's not to because obviously that's what this film is. So me saying that is not really a hit on this film. It's more just my preference of what I like from the Turtles.
Do you appreciate them changing up to have them be actual kids compared to like adults in the other versions? Because like they're
Well,
clearly going for their
this is
child
this is going to get
version of them.
this is what my point is that I'm more looking forward to the future films in this series
Yeah,
with this aesthetic, with this like what this is,
yeah.
but I'm looking forward to the second or the third film where they're older.
Shredder.
Honestly, I didn't really care who the villain is, but I just as long as the dynamic of the four is good,
Yeah,
fine.
that's the important part. Yeah,
Um, I think we did agree quite a lot on the character because we've spoken a little bit about this, but
yeah,
I thought this was a pretty good film, but it could have been a very good film with some minor changes, and I think that's probably just because this is aimed at younger kids.
yeah. And I hope, like as you reference, I hope it ages with the audience. So the
Yep.
next one's a little bit more gritty, and after that's a little bit more gritty. You
So
know,
it is
so
hard to shit on this film because I
yeah,
know it does definitely aim at a lower audience, and I would say even aims at like a lower audience than Spider-Verse did, the first one.
yeah, yeah,
So if
yeah,
you're expecting a Spider-Verse type film, I would lower your age range from say 16 to 20 or
yeah,
like 16 plus to maybe like 14 plus
yeah.
because there's a lot of like because the thing is I don't mind like it's gonna come up like the turtles talking about risen up April and stuff like that. Like honestly, I don't really mind that because
I
I guess
don't
they
at
age with the
all.
times.
Yeah, I'm happy
I,
with it, man.
I could understand why people wouldn't like that, but
I can understand why like people that are fans of the old stuff and like that,
yeah,
but at the end of the day, they're trying to appeal to new
yeah,
audiences,
exactly.
So
I
that's
feel
just
like
the
that's
reality
fine,
of it.
and I didn't find anything in this film like
Offensive.
offensive,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like not offensive, but I didn't
To the
feel like
lore,
it was
to the
ever
lore.
being.
Like
Yeah,
offensive to
I
the
did.
lore.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't feel like because obviously the obvious like the elephant in the room is that April is now. I've heard people say she looks like Lil Wayne, but which is not wrong. But
Yeah.
she's the elephant in the room, right? And that's not a fat joke, but she's the elephant in the room of like that's the major change they've made here that
Yeah.
people kicked off about, and then you had a whole oh this isn't what Turtles is, and then you had a whole counter oh but she's in this thing and she's black in this thing. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
This is what the film is. I don't really care about all the other crap.
Yeah.
She's fine in this film.
She's fine.
She's fine. She's not overly preachy. I wouldn't even say she's. I would say she's probably minimally preachy, but I I doubt it would. If you're taking offense at that, it's your problem. It's not the film's.
Yeah, there's like moments where I don't like her as a character, but I think that's what they were trying to do. Like, so for example, there's a scene. The big one for me was when they're talking to the mutants, and she's over the phone being like, "Fight them, fight them!" It's like, April, like there's like 10 of them. Like, what you expect, bro? They're, they're just using this, you know.
She's younger as well, right? Than she
She's
usually
younger
is.
as well. Yeah, yeah.
So it makes
I get
sense.
that, but there's or like the vomit jokes were getting a little bit too much for me. I'm just like, okay, let's move on. Like, I don't know. It might be like, again, it's a younger crowd that's watching it, so maybe they find that funny and stuff. I find that just a little bit too like,
That was definitely one of the worst parts of the film for me. But
yeah,
like, yeah, because I actually thought it was like a funnier joke if they didn't show it.
right,
They
right,
just cut because they I thought that's what they were going to do because they filmed it like that, like they kind of like staged it like that where it felt like it was going to cut and then she was just going to come back from her flashback into the present day and then she just vomits all over the place and I was like,
yeah,
eh,
yeah.
like, okay. But like you say, like when I went to cinema it was mostly like parents with young kids
Yeah,
like
same,
4 or 5,
same.
so if they find that funny I'm not going to knock it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I found it an unoffensive, pretty good time. I'm
I thought
glad it
this.
was short because I felt
Yeah,
like it could have even been shorter,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I would have probably rather that it was. I have no problem with like an 80-minute, 70-minute animated film.
Well, I think the cinema standard's 90. I think.
Nowadays,
Yeah,
but
nowadays, yeah,
I definitely think if your film's not if it doesn't if it's not going to hold up to an hour and a half, like who cares? Like
yeah.
if it's going to be better as a 75-minute film, then make it a 75-minute film.
Right, right. Yeah, just put on
Especially because
Netflix or something.
again, like when I was in the cinema, like this isn't me complaining because obviously kids are restless and kids are kids.
Yeah,
Uh, but the row in front, there was like a bunch of kids, and like he kept getting up out of his seat, and he was like, and he was like, oh, I'm like all restless and that, and I'm like, probably if you were aiming at a younger audience as well, it'd probably make more sense to shorten it because you're expecting kids to lock eyes on it and not like be restless in the cinema for 90 minutes.
yeah. True, true.
So if you're aiming at a younger audience, maybe make it a shorter film, and then as they go on, make them longer and sort of thing. So yeah, so I think that's my general thoughts.
I thought the soundtrack was banging.
I thought I heard you say that before I watched the film.
Yeah,
I thought it was quite good, but I didn't think it was amazing.
that's fair. It's not Guardians, but
No,
it's
but
definitely one of my favorite
I will say,
of them.
and I think we agreed on this as well, is
One
my
of our
favorite
favorite
scene in the
scenes.
in the film by far was the montage. So when April gives, she's like, "Oh, I've got 5 leads.
Yeah,
Go get them," and then they go to all these different like gangs all over New York.
yeah.
That was by far the best scene, and I
So
was
good.
my only complaint is that that happened so early in the film that I was then wanting some sort of escalation of that type of
Yeah,
thing. So I wanted more of that later on in the film, and that never came, and that was a bit disappointing for me because I was like, "This is the best part of your film," and it happened in like the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes maybe.
yeah.
I will say I liked the little fight scene they had before that as well. I thought that was quite good in the garage,
There's
like their
there's
first fight.
definitely there's definitely highlights throughout, but that was the peak. Like, that was Turtles for me, like them hunting down criminal bosses and stuff. You know, and it's like, oh yes, and the music at the time was so good
Yeah,
as
the music
well.
was
I'm
good.
like, yes,
And I think that's why I opened with the line of like, I'm looking forward more to the next films because I think that's what the next films need to be is more of that because they've already established
yeah,
well, what they've established in this film is like the turtles are young and now they've got this big extended family. But I think in the next films, if they lean more into that montage,
yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, that's the good shit.
I
So
have a feeling the next film, it's gonna sound so cliche, but I think it could work, where they're growing up, but in doing so, like they're getting a little bit
angsty.
like angsty, but also like having like identity issues in the sense of, oh, Raph. I know it's like a typical story in Turtles, but Raph is feeling, maybe I should be the leader. Like, I'm the better fighter. Like, why shouldn't I be the leader? You know, and then there's infighting and stuff. You know, or like give them little story arcs each, because I didn't really feel that at all, except maybe Leo in this film that had a
Right.
little bit of a story arc, and that's him becoming the leader, which I appreciate because usually Leo's one of the boring ones in my opinion. But in this film, I actually thought he was the best one out of the bunch.
He's definitely the easiest to make boring, right?
Well, yeah, he's
Which
just like the
is
typical
ironic
hero, right?
because I think in this film, like you say, he's probably the best one.
I think so. I think it's because he's the only one with a story and the character arc.
I mean, the other thing is, again, if you're aiming for a young audience, maybe having too many plot threads or too many character arcs in the one film might be too much.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I said, I think this is a great like ground base for them to branch off of because they're already making a TV show spin off of this and stuff. Like that's all in
Are they?
development.
Are they?
Yeah, they announced that before it even
Is it
came
based
out.
on the Turtles or is it like a spin-off character?
I believe it's the Turtles.
Okay, I'll
So
get with that.
there might be a bridge from that to their adult stage, So
Yeah,
that could, which I'm fine with. I don't know if I'll watch it, but if I hear good stuff, I might. Um, and maybe that's where you'll hear because, like I was saying to you in private, or I'll say private, like in our own talks. I don't want to see too many of the other mutants going forward. Like I think it's going to be a waste of time where I'd rather focus on the turtles. But in the show, maybe you can expand on them, where
yeah.
it's like, oh, we have Paul Rudd. But like, is Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen really going to like sign up for a bloody TV show to
What
play
I was hoping
those
was
characters?
is that because they're all basically villains, or they should be
Yeah,
in the lore, and they're all friends at this point, I'm kind of hoping that they do turn villains eventually, and that makes them more tragic villains, where you're like, oh, well, we used to be a family.
right.
That's what I'm hoping, because at least then they have an emotional connection to every single one of the villains
Yeah,
from the get-go, which could be pretty satisfying.
yeah.
Obviously, it could make this film a little less. If they fuck it up, it can make this one a little less effective, I guess, in what it puts forward as the message.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought most of them were pretty forgettable.
Yeah, like I remember, like obviously you remember Rocksteady, Bebop because they're like the probably the most famous ones out of that bunch. But like Paul Rudd's frog character, like I liked him. I liked Ice Cube's fly character, Superfly. Like, like there's some of them are pretty
I actually
alright.
wasn't too hot on Superfly.
That's what Superfly. I think I liked the performance over the actual character because the actual character was fairly generic.
Right.
Oh, humans don't like how we look, therefore we're going to kill everyone. Like
Which is
it's
ironic because
yeah,
all the humans in this film are fucking
ugly.
horrible creatures. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, I thought, I think it's a perfectly fine kids film. I think it's not on this level of Spider-Man, or I have not seen Puss in Boots, but I've heard good things. It's probably not on the same level as that either. But I think
right.
it's a good standard. It's definitely not one of those films where you're like, oh my god, why are they making these type of films these days? Like Pixar, where it's kind of like what you do in Pixar. Like you could be doing so much better than this. This is a much better version of what Pixar's doing these
I
days.
would I would say if I had kids that were of the age of like 3 to 10, I
Yeah,
would 100% show them this film. 100%.
100% easy.
Yeah.
And and that's the thing. Like these films, yeah, they're for kids, but adults should be able to watch them as well because they're the ones taking them to the film. They're also
Yeah.
paying for a ticket. It's
And
like
also,
you need to
Teenage
have
Mutant Ninja
references for them.
Turtles doesn't really have the name it used to, obviously.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely
this is them
not as big.
obviously trying to get it back, right?
Yeah,
So you're expecting the nostalgia, like a lot of the stuff. There's stuff in the film that was nostalgia bait, right? As well, where
yeah.
you're obviously putting stuff in there for people who used to be fans,
Hmm.
or still are, but are older now. So yeah, but yeah, like I say, my thoughts are, yeah, this is a pretty good film, but I'm probably not going to watch it again. I'm probably just going to watch the next one.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm probably on the same boat, to be honest.
But if we ever have kids in between, I'll show my kids it.
Yeah, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely,
very good.
absolutely. All right then, happy days.
I have some. Well, okay. So keeping on the train of a more recent release, we have both separately seen, but not really talked about, Talk to Me, which has been getting some kind of word of mouth clout at the moment on YouTube because
Yeah,
there's obviously the relationship to YouTube with the directors kind of starting their short film
Raka Raka.
career on YouTube. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this film, Brandon? What do you think of Talk to Me?
I quite liked it. Like I went in with absolutely nothing because I didn't watch a single trailer. I didn't know the premise at all. I didn't know about the YouTuber stuff until um honestly probably during the trailers. And I was like, I thought to myself, wait a minute, didn't I thought was like, yeah, because I remember listening to a podcast with them on it and them talking about it, but this was like months ago, and then it just clicked me as the film was about to start. I was like, oh shoot, yeah, there you guys making it, because I remember I saw their names as the title screen was coming up and
Right.
stuff. And I was like, oh shoot, yeah. Honestly, I thought it was for a debut film. I think it's absolutely freaking pretty decent. Like I'm sure the budget was minimal, so honestly, for what they were able to do in this film, writing wise and lore wise, and I thought there was some interesting camera angles and shots and stuff. It's like I think it's pretty good. Honestly, I probably like it more than Insidious 1 and 2. Honestly, after rewatching them pretty close together. Um, yeah, I'm a big fan. I would say I prefer Turtles if we're to compare, like, because I watched them both on the same day. I watched Turtles and
Compare
Toddler.
apples to oranges. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they're completely different,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, like I preferred watching Turtles that
Well,
day
actually, I saw them
over.
in the same day as well.
Oh, so you did. There you go, double feature.
Funnily enough,
Right. But yeah, what about you as the non-horror fan?
I thought this film was going to be a lot scarier than it was, and I don't know. I don't have a high tolerance, and I shouldn't have a high tolerance for horror. And the last few horror films I've went and seen, I haven't thought they were that scary. And this one, I was hoping, because it started off really intriguing, and I was like, "There's a lot of potential here to be some freaky shit, right?" And I'll give it props. There's not many jump scares, if any, right? Really.
Yeah, which I appreciate because I absolutely hate jump scares. I think it's an absolute cheap way of scaring someone.
To me, I feel like jump scares are kind of a buzzword at the moment, where jump scares equal bad,
There's definitely a way
but
to use them, but like
they're definitely overused.
to me it's like a laugh track watching a sitcom where it's like, oh, this is where you laugh, oh, this is where you get scared. Like, try and I don't know, like I, there's definitely parts in this film where I was creeped out. There's one scene where I covered my eyes, which I typically don't. But
What is that?
what, the scene that covered my eyes?
Yes.
It was when she was sleeping in the bed with the dude, and it's dark, and she hears someone talk to her, and I'm like, oh no, what's gonna jump out? You know, like that's what I'm like. Okay, like close my eyes a little bit.
I actually,
Uh,
I thought that scene was going to be a lot scarier than it was, for one, but also I was kind of sitting there a bit like I was quite disappointed with the choice they went for the main like ugly monster thing. The woman that kind of the big fat woman who had like the kind of pus or tar or that kind of stuff covered in like swampy gump sort of stuff,
right, yeah,
gunk. I kind of was disappointed they went that route. I don't know. I'd like something a bit more. Uh, I don't know, like, cause I think really the film that freaks me out the most, probably horror wise, is Pennywise. Is like it.
yeah.
Uh, I haven't built up a tolerance to that fucking clown at all.
But what
But
about it? Is it just the visual
I
of
think
the
part of
clown,
it, I
or
don't know. I think part of it is the kind of animosity of it as well. Like he's got a kind of like primal aspect to him, where
yeah,
it's a bit like
yeah,
he's fucking with them.
yeah,
And obviously, you get a lot of that in this film. You get a lot of like them fucking with the main characters, but you don't get that kind of like primal urge. And I'm not saying that's the solution to the problem. I'm just saying that's maybe what I find scarier about Pennywise. And I think a big part of that is maybe the athleticism of Pennywise as well, because there's a lot of like he's very energetic. He's very like he could track you down. Like this one's a bit
yeah.
more. Everything is quite slow moving. Everything's quite like a bit floaty, that kind of thing.
Do you feel like this film needed a villain per se, like Pennywise or in Insidious
Hmm.
1 and 2,
I'd have taken
like
one
that?
more like. I don't think it needs a Pennywise. I think it needs something a bit more like Insidious.
But I mean, like a villain you'd recognize
Yeah,
and be
yeah.
like, okay,
Well,
they're the one trying to
that's
torment me, because there wasn't
that's.
really one besides maybe the mum, but
But
I
she
didn't
wasn't.
buy into that.
Yeah, she wasn't it.
Yeah, she wasn't it. Literally, she wasn't it.
Yeah, and there's some again. I think a big thing about this film is I like a lot of the ideas more than I do the execution.
Yeah,
I think that's where I'm sitting with it. Is that I would probably give it a 6.5, maybe a 7 at a push,
yeah,
but I'm not really willing to go any higher than that.
it's fair. It's fair.
I will say as well that I didn't mind the ending. I wish they'd maybe developed it a bit more. It seemed very abrupt, and I think it was supposed to, but I don't think that. And that could be that's a creative choice in my mind,
Yeah,
but it didn't leave me with that great an impression because I kind of saw it coming as well at some point. No, I didn't know which character it was going to be, but I kind of figured that that was going to happen to a character,
Yeah.
that they would then be part of the kind of the hand ritual. But I know for a fact that a lot of the people in our cinema, when we watched it, were very disappointed with with the ending.
I see.
And I'm not saying you have to crowd please, but when there's a trend, sometimes like this, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I don't know. I didn't find the ending that satisfying, and I probably won't watch this film again. But I did have a good time watching it.
Yeah. I don't know, I'm on a bit of a difference here. I quite like the ending, the open endedness of it, but I don't think it was even open end. I think it was the type of ending where it's like something happens, you're like, wait, what happened? Is she dead? Like, what is the boy healed? But then I feel like it answers it as it continues because it's clearly, to me anyway, from my point of view, that what she's seeing is legit. Like the boy healed, they've moved on, they live happily ever after. She's the one that's died because she's the one that got them in this mess. And then what I really love is the last shot where she takes the hand and she's the
Yeah.
opposite end of
Well,
the game. You
so
know.
the thing I was confused about, right, is they make a big point in the film that if you go over the 90 seconds, there's the potential that whatever spirit you communed with can stay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they make it a point that that diminishes over time eventually. If you go over the 90 seconds, that you'll maybe see things after the kind of ritual, but those things will start to diminish back to zero. But the little boy doesn't. And
Yeah.
actually, neither does the main characters, right? Because she keeps doing it.
Yeah.
But the thing I found strange is they make it a point where it's like, oh, if you die, they can take over your body or some shit. They say there's like a throwaway line like that where they're like, if you die while they're in you, they take over, and that's their goal essentially as
Right.
spirits. But the main character at the end of the film, she died, and presumably the mother was still inside her because she was still talking to her the whole fucking film. And well, not really the mother, but like whoever was pretending to be the mother. And I thought that was a
Um,
weird thing to put forward early in the film, that was the whole point of her trying to save the boy, right? Was that she didn't want him to become possessed fully.
yeah.
But then she died with something in her, and they never addressed that. I don't know.
Suppose that's a good point, but like then it kind of breaks apart because the boy was trying to freaking smash his face in. So it's like, why would the ghost want to purposely do that if they want to take over that body?
I don't know. Um,
I think it does fall apart there a little bit. I don't think the lore is secure as
as
it could have
well,
been.
that part with the boy smashing his head in at the end when they show him healed, I'm like, the problem is you set up this premise of she can't trust anything she sees, which means we can't trust anything we've seen. Which is, I like that, but it does mean like what parts of the lore are fabricated then? Because I feel like there are parts of the lore that are fabricated, right? Where maybe that about becoming possessed, because that feeds into, if that lore is true, that if you die with it in you, then you're possessed. Then that is her direct link to trying to save him, right?
Right.
Because her whole point is, oh, I'm trying to save the little boy from killing himself. No, the little boy from hurting himself. So I'm gonna kill him,
Yeah. I guess that was the
like slowly, I guess. I don't know.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it was. I don't know. I found it really like hard to follow at one point, but
No, that's fair. No, I'm agreeing with you now more that the more I'm thinking about it. But I definitely think there was an idea there that maybe, like you said, maybe the execution wasn't as great as it could have been. Um,
because I
just to
yeah,
flesh out a little bit, like what's going on.
because I
You
like
know?
the idea of like a spirit telling you, oh, you need to kill this person because they're in agony, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they put forward, is this kid's spirit's in agony.
Yeah.
And I loved that. Was probably one of my favorite scenes in the film. Um,
Well, when you see him
yeah,
in
being
hell,
like
essentially.
basically torn apart in hell. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really
That,
like
that
that
was
scene.
really disturbing. Yeah, I'll give. Yeah, I'll agree.
I liked more of that, but
I
again,
think I think you saw the perfect amount though. I think if you saw too much, it would have just become. I think it wouldn't have been as
I'm not saying
striking.
you go full Insidious and you like put them in the world,
Yeah, because I thought that honestly, I thought that's where they were going to go. Honestly,
right?
I thought she was going to like venture into that realm or whatever to bring him back, sacrifice herself doing so or something. I
But
thought that's what
you
they're
know,
going to do, but
some things
I'm
as
glad they
well, it
didn't.
felt a little forced, like in hindsight, not in the moment, but in hindsight, where the whole premise of the film is her, because they set up at the start, she picks up the little boy, they go, they see a kangaroo in the road, and she can't put it out of its misery, right? She knows it's hurting, but she
Yeah,
can't put it out of its misery, and that is a direct like translation of the whole point of this film with her and the young boy, is that she can't put him out of his misery,
yeah,
and I felt that was like it didn't feel ham-fisted in the moment because I didn't know that's where the film was going. But in hindsight, on a second watch, that is going to be like so. That is such a ham-fisted way to get a point, get that across that point. I feel like
right.
it feels way too like similar a situation to be like, oh, she had to put this kangaroo out of its misery, but she didn't. Just like the week before, she had to do it to a boy.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that that's like too far fetched, but like it just seems a bit. I don't want to say lazy, but it seems a bit like upfront.
I see. Oh, fair enough. I didn't take it like I got the symbolism, but I never took it that like as you're saying like too seriously, I suppose, or like oh that's so convenient or whatever, you know. But I don't know. It's I don't know if I don't know what if I'm just like unconsciously giving them credit because of the level filmmakers they're at. So I'm like what they've made. I'm like giving them more credit what I would make for like if James Wan made this, for example. You know, I don't know if I'm giving them like leeway for making doing decisions like that, or like the
Yeah.
ending, for example. I don't know,
I
but
will say some positives because I feel like I've been quite negative on a film that I actually don't think is bad.
yeah,
Everyone in this film is quite good, or very good, acting wise.
yeah.
The relationship between characters are quite good. People don't really act too stupid most of the time,
The
and
only time I disagree with that is when she's telling the boy to stay longer when she's trying to talk to her mum. That's the only part where I'm like, you know the rules, but this is a horror film and they have to do it, you know. So fair enough.
I
But
kind of bought that because they set up how insecure she is as a person and how
I get it.
emotionally
Yeah,
unresolved she is with her mum. So I was a bit like, I guess in that situation you kind of would do that, even
yeah,
though it's definitely not the right thing to do. So I didn't mind that too much.
that's
But you're
fair.
not wrong. Um, I think it's a really good looking film.
Yeah.
It's a really good looking
Again, I
film.
think I'm going to double check the budget, but I'm certain it's freaking tiny, man. Because there's no big actors, I don't think, in this film
They
either.
got well. I was just about to say that they've got fucking Ao in She's Mama in the film. She's
Oh,
probably
right.
the biggest named actor in the film, I reckon. But I apart from the sidemen, but but the I really liked like the opening scene as well. I thought that was really cool. That kind of reminded me a bit of a Tarantino film, not in the sense of how it felt, but more of how he writes, where he's like he'll write like the opening scene to be memorable, right?
Yeah,
On purpose. And all of his films have that opening memorable scene.
yeah,
Think like
of
Under the
course.
Floorboards and Inglourious Bastards, that kind of thing. That is kind of what this was, right? That was like your shocking opening to this film, and I really liked that.
Yeah, that was good.
And I
Um,
like that they actually tied that into the rest of the film. That wasn't just like shock value just for that moment, and then they're like, "Oh, this is just the hand." I like that they tied that to that was actually the brother that they go meet later as well. That they
yeah,
managed to get that into the plot. I like that.
for sure, for sure. I just did a little research on the budget and all that. Apparently, the budget was 4.5 million, and
That's a very good looking film for that.
they've made 36 million off of that. So it's like in general terms, that's not a lot, but if you're looking at the gross between budget and what they've made, that's a
And
lot.
also,
That's a
horror
lot.
films don't tend to make as much as
Yeah,
other films
yeah,
anyway.
they don't. Yeah, they don't. If anything, they've become more cult classics after cinema release,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
I will say as well, I think they really, really nail the relationship, or not the relationship, the start of the film. They really nail like young adult
yeah,
like hanging out.
yeah,
I thought they really nailed that with like you have like these because you know you've got those folk in your lives, you young teenagers, and not even young teenagers, everyone. Those two bastards who come along with like the weird freaky hand. There's always those two motherfuckers that you just don't want in the group, right?
yeah, yeah.
I hope no one in our friend group's watching this, but you always have that, right? Where you've got your group of friends, you've maybe got like a girlfriend in the group, or you've got so and so that you know from school, but then you've got two other motherfuckers from bumfuck nowhere that no one really actually knows, and somehow they've managed to get their way into someone's house. And I think that was really believable, the way they just kind of slithered in and they were like, "Wow, I want to be cool. Come to my house." I like
Yeah.
that. It felt a bit Donnie Darko, that, I guess, like not it's not remotely like Donnie Darko, but the way they nail the kind of young adult stuff.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think honestly, I think it has a similar vibe as well, where it's like a little bit disturbing, like throughout. I think that's my biggest take is that it wasn't scary, but I was just disturbed, like
Right.
throughout. To be honest, like it was always like that lingering part, whether it was just a quick cut to a creepy figure, or the quick cut to hell, or the people she's talking to, like stuff like that. But again, it's not gonna be one
Yeah.
of those horror films where it's gonna stick with me. I'm not gonna think about it in my freaking dreams or whatever tonight. But I think I think I appreciate what they were able to do with what they had over what the actual movies become, kind of thing.
Right.
Um, you know, again, especially for first time makes, but they're making a second one. I'm pretty sure that's in the works as well now. Like that's happening. Um, which honestly is a little bit surprising because the, the the box office wasn't crazy
Right.
um good. It wasn't like Paranormal Activity where they made it for freaking pennies and made millions off it. But it's like fair enough. Like I'll watch it. they might they might go a different route with it. I don't think they're gonna stick with the same
Yeah.
characters.
I hope they don't. But
Yeah,
I would say I think I like the scene with the kid on the floor as well, like banging his head off the thing. I like stuff like that as well. That was like, or like when he was banging the table. I loved the bit when he first like starts banging his head on the table, and you're like, oh fuck, like they've really fucked up.
yeah,
And then they try to stop him, and he just goes onto the corner of the table and just starts fucking banging it off the corner. That was horrible.
yeah.
I like that a lot.
I think for me the scenes where they touch the hand and then there's that moment of oh my god they see what's in front of them. To me that's the scary part because it's like in my opinion that not in my opinion in my mind I can fill in the blanks of like oh my god what are they looking at
Right.
kind of thing. Like that would freak me out in person if I freaking touched his hand
Yeah, yeah.
and then this figure across from me is holding it. Like that's the creepy part for me.
I'd say that probably the first half of this film I really enjoyed a lot more, or like the first half of the paranormal stuff I really enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say we did see Smile earlier this year, and I would say that
Was that this year?
I think so.
Shoot, God, you might be right. You might
If
be
it
right.
wasn't this year, it was late last year probably.
Yeah,
But I would say I preferred Smile to this, and I think they're actually quite similar films,
they are. Yeah,
especially because they're both very well shot and they're really nice looking films. But yeah, I like the just to compare the scene in Smile where they go into the prison and it's the guy who managed to get rid of it by killing someone else.
yeah,
And he's like, "You brought it here? Why the fuck did you bring it?" And he goes mental. That is, I like that stuff in Smile, and I think they did comparative scenes in this film well with the hand as well, where you know the kind of stakes of what they're dealing with,
yeah,
and it's really I really like that. I let you in, and it's like 90 seconds or you're fucked. Like I like
yeah,
that, and then you go over the 90 seconds. That was the obvious part. They were going to go over 90 seconds, but it was also like who's going to be the one that goes over the 90 seconds, right?
yeah, yeah,
And then you kind of get that obsession with the girl because in my mind she never none of the spirits she ever met were her mother, right? Not a single one. They were all just impersonating.
But she ended up managing to talk to her though,
I don't think any of this. No, because in my mind, right,
or is that
you've
just the
got these
figure
malevolent.
she's
Well,
connected
this
to?
is the thing because they drop a line again where they're like, "Oh, some spirits can like imitate people," and
Yeah,
obviously it imitates her dad and stuff. But in my mind, she never met her mother because her mother lies to her. Like, because whenever she meets one of these spirits, they always tell her what she wants to hear, and they always tell
that's
like,
true.
so her
Yeah,
mum's one.
that's true.
She
Like, well,
always
I
says,
never
"I
killed
didn't kill
myself.
myself."
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
yeah,
the whole point. But she know for a fact she killed herself,
yeah,
100%, like her mum, and that's like the whole point. And I kind of gathered that the whole point of that's how the spirits got to her.
Mm-hmm.
was through her unresolved emotions from her dead mum.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I think there's things presented in the film that you can debate with that of like, oh, when is it actually her mum? Because you could say like, oh, the first one was her mum, but then after that they were copying the mum or something. You could argue
Mm-hmm.
that, or sometimes she was talking to the mum, sometimes she wasn't. But in my mind, she never ever met the mum. It
Yeah,
was
that
always
makes
just some
sense. Yeah,
malevolent spirit.
that makes sense. Yeah,
Which I guess, to give it credit, I guess you could a second watch of the film could be good to kind of pick apart things like that. But honestly, I doubt I'll watch this film again.
yeah, that's fair. And like, I can only imagine myself watching it again if I was to recommend it to someone, and I was like, yeah,
Right.
I'll watch along kind of thing, just like Insidious, for example.
Yeah.
I would I think it's a good comparison to Smile or Truth or Dare or Happy Death Day, kind of thing. Like that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. And in my opinion, it's the best one out of all those. But
Right.
again, I'd handle like a mid 7 kind of thing,
Okay.
a lower end 7. I think I said at the start. I think I prefer it over Insidious.
Right.
Um,
I mean, I'll say again as well, the same feeling I have for TMNT, where I'm more excited for the sequel, is probably this one as well, where I probably won't watch the original, but I'll watch the next one if they
yeah,
bring out another one.
yeah,
So I'm not giving it too high a score, but I'm intrigued to see what they do next
for
for both
sure.
those films.
It's a new concept, and that I can always appreciate over just some slasher.
Hopefully by then I'll be more into horror.
Yeah.
So,
Well, maybe this diary will freaking show the growth.
or just, yeah, show the perpetual shit in my pants if we watch something too scary.
Yeah,
Um, if you've got
yeah,
something very scary, but not very, very scary, put it in the comments.
yeah.
Uh,
Because right now it's your top, right?
Probably.
Yeah,
Not the second one. I thought the second one was a bit ass, but the first one. Definitely
yeah.
some of the shit in the first one. If I think about that, never mind watch it. Nah, man.
We need to talk
Uh,
about it sometime. We need to dedicate an episode to it.
if we're doing a net episode, I want it to be videoed us watching it as a watch party
Fair enough.
because
Yeah.
I'm not watching that film just for a fucking podcast episode. Fuck that. The
Fair enough.
I mean, I have three other films on my list that are older films that I probably don't need to talk about too much. I just want to quickly mention as part of our little diary.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
don't know if you have some other films as well. And then we'll get onto Clone Wars.
Oh,
So I have Drive. Obviously, everyone's been watching Barbie. I haven't seen it. I've just been watching Drive. The other Ken. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have any expectations for Drive. I knew people liked it, but I didn't know what it was. I missed the entire meme train on that as well until I watched it and then started getting recommended shit about it.
did Drive not win an Oscar or something?
No clue, mate.
I swear that's like where I'm because I've heard about it, but I feel like I've only heard about it in that context. I'll do some research while.
Bryan Cranston should have won an Oscar for being a dumb cuck. A
Oh,
dumb fucking cuck in that film. He's such a fucking idiot in that film.
let's see.
But have you seen it?
No, I've not.
No. I will say, Bryan Cranston, I like him in it. And the bad guy is Marlin from Finding Nemo, which is really weird.
Oh, interesting.
Because he's a big guy as well. I don't know how big he was. He's a tall man.
All right.
But it's a good cast. And the main character is kind of autistic, which I think is why everyone says he's literally me because he can't talk to women, but for some reason for some reason he gets them anyway. He's Ryan Gosling, that's why he gets them. But
Yeah.
I thought it was a pretty solid film. I I think it's very rewatchable, but I wouldn't say it's something you need to necessarily pay too much attention to when
Yeah.
you're watching it. The It's got a bit of style. I like the style of it because I the reason I watched it initially is because I'd read on Reddit that someone said it's like basically GTA Online, the film. And I watched it the first time and I didn't think that was true. And then I watched it a second time and I thought there's definitely that vibe going on, at least in parts of this film, especially towards the end, I think, like the middle to end. And the last time I watched it as well, I noticed, I think the Grand Theft Auto 5, or at least GTA Online, when you're driving to like a new mission, the soundtrack sounds almost identical to the soundtrack in this film. So I
Uh,
definitely, and I know for a fact the jacket from this film has a spoof version in GTA 5. So I think there is definitely a bit of crossover there because I
See,
think this takes a bit of inspiration from like Vice City,
all
and then I
right,
think GTA 5 takes a bit of inspiration from this.
I
So I
see.
think there's a bit back and forth, which is quite nice. But yeah, it's a solid film. A lot of people say it's just bad Baby Driver. I wouldn't say that. I think Baby Driver is a very different thing. I think it's easy to compare the two because they're both drivers and they don't have names really. Like you have Baby, but he's not really got a name, like a real name.
Yeah,
And this guy doesn't have a name either. But I don't know. I think they're quite different films. Like they got very different focuses on what their film is, even though the situations are kind of similar.
yeah,
But solid
interesting.
film.
No, I'm intrigued to watch it. I'm down to like maybe dedicate an episode or something to that down the line
Yeah,
where I can give it
he's
a watch.
literally me. Human being. And yes, I absolutely added the fucking song to my playlist for the car. Don't at me. I absolutely did. It's a meme, but I did it. It's a good song. Uh, you got one, or do you want me to just rattle through my list?
Nah, I've not watched any really films in my spare time besides the cinema ones.
Okay.
So yeah, just rattle some of them off, man.
I think this probably warrants more of a, I don't know, more of a deeper look. Because actually, ironically, this film seems like fucking YouTube. Like this seems like it would do really well on YouTube as like an essay of this film. And I know there are a couple, but they're kind of shit. Is Amelie, because it's a really famous film. I just hadn't seen it, but I liked it quite a bit. I don't know. I didn't love it, but and I thought it went a bit too far in places. But I don't have any context for French cinema, so I completely missed that. But I thought it was pretty good. It's definitely fun. It was definitely I was never bored for the runtime, so that was good. And it was also really weird because I went to Paris not long before I watched the film and just had no clue that the whole thing was set in like Montmartre, and that's basically where we were as well for at least a time. And we went to all the same like metro stations and stuff, and like walked the same streets. And I was like, "Holy shit! I was there like last week. That's weird." But and I know like the color grading. That's what the film's famous for is like the color grading and the style. So those things were all on point.
I said to you earlier that I thought it was a bloody horror film based on the poster that I saw.
And you're not wrong. You're absolutely
Yeah,
not wrong. Yeah.
I kind of got the same vibe as what was that film we watched up north with the orphan? What was that film called? Sugar. Can't mind. But I kind of thought it was going to be a film like that,
Right.
where it was like some creepy
Yeah, it's a really strange
child
film.
or
I
something.
think.
But it's apparently like a rom com or something. I was like, what?
Well, I think it's weird. It's just a weird film, and it's very easy to talk about this film and sound like a total fucking prune. So I'm probably just gonna put that off to when we've all seen it. But
That's
like,
fair.
it's really strange because I think it takes a lot. I did read into it a little bit. It takes a lot of influence from famous French cinema and cinema, like classic French cinema and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people really love it. I don't have any knowledge on that subject. I haven't watched any of those films. It makes me want to watch some of those films, but I haven't seen any of them. And this guy, I think, came off Alien 3, which going from that to this is
That's a bit mad, eh?
mad.
That's
But
a genre
yeah,
change up.
it's really interesting. I know, because like there's fourth wall breaks and stuff like that in the film, but they're not like Deadpool fourth wall breaks. They kind of are in a way, but they're also very different, and
Yeah.
things are shot different, and they're at least interesting. It's definitely it's definitely like you go looking for this film, I reckon, rather than just going to the cinema to watch a film and this is the one you pick.
Right.
So if you like being a fucking film snob, you're gonna love this film, I tell you. Whoa.
Hmm.
And total opposite, if you're not a film snob, you're gonna fucking love it. If you hate film snobs and you love Nickelback, you're gonna love this fucking film. This is fucking Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen.
Oh
Oh
my god.
mate, what a film. Uh, I can't lie, this was a good time. I have zero fond memories of this film as a kid. I had a lot of the toys. Not zero fond memories, that's a bit harsh. But basically grew up thinking I'm never going to watch that film again. As soon as I hit like 16, I was like, man, that is just, whoa. But I don't know if it's just because I had friends over and we watched it. But my god, it's almost as funny as the first film, and the first film's fucking hilarious.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like they're not good films, but like you're enjoying the the comedy aspect of it. Like you're not taking it seriously when you're watching it. You know what I mean? you're not feeling the stakes where it's like, oh Sam, you need to get to that point. You know, you don't
Yeah,
care. You know what I mean?
I
You
will
just want to
say
see stupid robots
this
fight
film
each other. You know?
fucking annoys the fuck out of me. Some of the lore in this film, especially
Yeah,
because I watched the Transformers the movie, the 1985 animated one, not long ago.
yeah,
So I had that fresh in my head, and I watched this, and like they just do the Matrix of leadership so fucking dirty
right,
and stuff like that. But like Jetfire, the SR-71 Blackbird,
yeah.
mate, he's just fucking hilarious. Like he doesn't have a line that isn't fucking hilarious.
Mate, Megatron with the cloak does it for me. Like that's the best part in the
He's not
film.
in that film. He's not. No, that's the third film.
Is that the third one? I thought it
That's
was
the
this
third
film.
one. No, he looks
Shit.
kind of. He looks all right in this
Are
film.
you
Like, he looks all
sure?
right.
Well, I mean, you saw it, I didn't,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming you're right.
Uh,
Yeah,
but yeah,
damn.
I think watching this film, I'm a bit like, this is definitely where things start to go very, very wrong as opposed to just wrong. But
But yeah, they have like a 5 film streak of just bad films after
yeah,
this. So,
and obviously they have their market because they're massive fucking films.
and they
And
all make
I was
close
that
to a
market at one
billion.
point.
You know,
But some of the stuff in this, I'm like, I can't believe I watched that as an 11-year-old.
mad. I remember
Uh,
watching it in cinema. That's the
Same.
one with the pyramid, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
but
Oh yes, it's got like the weird, like monkey tiki looking Transformers as the villains or something, right? With like long faces.
yeah, the Fallen, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, the
Okay, yeah, it's
Prime.
coming
He's a
back to me now.
Prime, yeah.
Oh, is he a
But
prime? Oh wow.
well, I don't think they're. I think the other. Well, I don't know. I think he's like a bad Prime. That's why he's the Fallen, right?
I see.
He's like a Fallen Prime. But uh, yeah, it's this film. I remember saying this to Jay, hello Jay, when we were watching it. This film is 30 minutes of, oh no, there's a piece of the Allspark. Megatron's alive again, and then Optimus Prime, whenever he's on screen, absolutely wrecks fucking house. Then they kill him. The rest of next 2 hours of the film is getting him back, and he solves all the film's problems in 10 minutes. Not even 10 minutes, 3 minutes. This whole film could have been, if they didn't kill Optimus Prime in this film, there is no film. This is a short film. This is like
Mm.
18 minutes of film because he takes on 3 Transformers at the start of this fucking film. He kills one of them, and the only reason he gets killed is because they sneak up on him. But he fucking had them, mate. And then at the end of the film, he fights the Fallen and Megatron at the same time. He rips one's fucking face off and the other in half, and it's like you've basically just fucking killed Megatron 2 films in a row, and there's zero stakes for Megatron being a villain anymore because he's just such a pussy. And I think
And they keep doing it. They keep doing it as the films go on.
this is the biggest mistake these films made was making the villains absolute fucking pussies. And it's like it's
Yeah,
cool because Optimus gets his moment,
yeah,
but they're just pussies, and Optimus Prime is the only competent motherfucker there is in
yeah.
this entire film. It's so annoying just to be like, yeah, if they don't kill him, there's no movie here.
It feels like a TV show or like Team Rocket for Pokemon, where it's like, oh, they lose again. That's just part of the story. You know, it's like they have to have that to. Yeah, it's just freaking dumb, freaking blockbuster, man. Obviously, there's like stuff that do offend people in these films, and I can totally understand that. Like just being complete open, I find it funny personally, but it's like
I thought this film was fucking hilarious.
you know,
Start to finish.
but I've got very crude humor, so
But like Tom Kenny as well, like fucking SpongeBob is 2 of these Transformers, and they're both like shocking.
yeah, yeah.
Like
But like, even if I find it funny, I'm not gonna say it's good because
I
it's
just
not. It's
can't believe you would watch the original series, and what you would take out of that is, let's make a radio-controlled Transformer hump Megan Fox's leg and shout, "Say my name, say my name," and I'm like, what? What?
yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
It's as you said when we were talking about the new one. Is that because I said the comment where it was like it's a Transformers film. You're not going to make an Oscar-worthy Transformers film, but you're saying you could though. Like
mate,
if you really
honestly,
could, but like no, this is the stuff they do though. Like it's at least at this
honestly,
time they were.
mate, if you take what I thought they were going to do in the new film, and I don't know if I said this in a review of Rise of the Beasts, but if they'd set up instead of whatever the fuck Pete Davidson's character was called, if they'd set him up as Hot Rod, and then you had a 3 film arc where Optimus Prime eventually dies and gives up being a Prime to a Rodimus Prime, holy fuck! If you just extend that original Transformers the movie over 3 films,
There you
holy boy, mate, I would cream all over that cinema seat, all 3 times in a row. Like that'd be so fantastic. but I don't think that's what they're doing, unfortunately. But
No, well,
unicorns
honestly,
in it.
it's better than what they've been doing, so we'll take it.
Yes,
We'll
Rise of the
take
Beasts. The more I think about it, could have been much, much better, but it's still a step in the right direction.
it.
I'll
Is,
say
yeah.
that.
It's like what film we were talking about the TMNT. It's like it's not perfect, but it's the right way to go.
It's
You
the right
know, it's
direction.
like, and that's what we can take these days.
In my mind, Peter Cullen, he's marvelous as Optimus Prime, and he is the only Optimus Prime. But he's an old man. He's getting old. You're going to need to replace him eventually. So have a bit of foresight. Get rid of Optimus while you can. Give him a good exit,
Yeah,
and have the franchise be carried on by someone else.
yeah. Hot Rod.
Yeah, Hot Rod, fucking Rodimus Prime, mate, and
They're gonna make a
Oh, yeah,
Bumblebee too,
that's
mate.
it,
They're
mate.
gonna make a
Fuck
Bumblebee
Bumblebee.
too.
Bumblebee's such a nothing character in the fucking series, man. It doesn't piss me off that much.
Yeah,
But anyway, that's a nothing film. I think we should talk about Ahsoka
let's get to it, man.
now. Yes, so he did watch Clone Wars as well, but unfortunately he's not with us, as I said before. So we're going to talk about Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the movie,
The movie, only the movie.
only the movie.
Yeah.
And
Obviously, we can reference the show, but
as a
we'll,
preface, we have both seen the entirety of the show, so we
Yep.
have all the context. We've
Yep.
both seen all the Mandalorian. We're up to date, and we're ready to rumble on fucking August 23rd.
You've
We're
not
ready
seen
to
all
go.
of Rebels, though, right?
I am in the process of watching Rebels.
Ooh.
I've seen all of season 1. I think I'm on season 2, probably about halfway through season 2. So
Honestly,
I've met
season
Ahsoka.
2's finale is the freaking peak of that show. It is the best.
That's the Darth Vader fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a frog, isn't it? And
So,
it's just on my mind. But yeah, so this is, as we said, this is Ahsoka's conception. Yes, this is our inception. This is where we meet
introduction.
Ahsoka. This is our introduction.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite a not grandiose introduction. She just kind of steps off her ship. But
Yeah.
I guess she was nothing at the time, so. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think of this film? Watching it with fresh eyes.
I've got so mixed feelings because obviously we said we've watched the Clone Wars show and I absolutely adore the show. I think it has it's hard, right? Because it's hard to judge because I think it has just as many bangers as it has as many stinkers. Like sometimes it's like the best Star Wars are gonna get, but then there's other parts where it's like, no, it's the absolute dirt worst. Like, miss this. This movie, I think, is more bad than good in my opinion, and I think it shows because when I was a kid, I never really cared to watch the film, but when I did, it never really convinced me to watch the show. You know, I never cared. I never saw Anakin as my Anakin. I never saw that Obi-Wan as my Obi-Wan. Obviously now I do because the show made them so good. But in this film alone, I don't think they're, at their peak. And I suppose like obviously as the show goes on, you're going to get more attached to them. But if I'm judging purely this film, I don't think any character really stands out. I like the Obi-Wan and Ventress dynamic, but that's about it, So
I think the dialogue in this film is fucking horrible.
I think it's atrocious.
Yeah.
I can't say the word, but yeah, it's terrible.
I that's not something I was looking for going in as well, because I'm kind of like you. I didn't watch the show when I was younger, but I've watched it since.
I didn't watch the show until I found Darth Maul was in it, and then I turned on
Right.
the show. Then I was like, okay, what's this?
Okay.
But yeah, the dialogue's pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. It's so interesting because Ahsoka, in general, with all the context, is one of my favorite characters. I think she's my third favorite if I was to like really narrow it down. But bro, her introduction is terrible. I don't like her.
I think she's quite mixed in this film because she's easy to hate, but knowing where she goes is the only thing kind of.
Well, yeah. Like, but imagine this is the first time you see her,
That's what
and
I mean. Yeah.
you don't know after this what happens. This is the apprentice of Darth Vader, Anakin, and it's this freaking whiny little teenager who just makes fun of Sky Guy, and carries around a slug and just moans and yeah, I hate it, man. I know obviously it makes sense with the progression because obviously we know where she goes and I absolutely love where the character goes, and knowing that I don't mind the introduction, but again, if I'm just purely judging this film, I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
I feel like I feel like there's some scenes where I think there's some scenes I really liked in this film, and there's some that I
But
was like,
definitely, it's
I
not
was
a
like,
freaking. It's not the
yeah.
worst thing ever they've ever made.
Even
There's
Ahsoka
definitely
scenes where I
bits.
was like,
Yeah,
oh, like this is a nice moment, and they're doing quite a lot of they're kind of doing quite a bit of legwork in this film for Ahsoka as well,
yeah,
more than I expected. Because if they had a show in the pipeline, obviously I maybe don't know to the extent of where they're going to go, but they at least know they have access to be able to give her a proper character arc over the
yeah.
series.
Because I think one of my favorite parts is when it's really at the start where they beat the droids and stuff, and then Anakin sits down with her and he's like, "Oh, you're never going to make it as Obi-Wan's Padawan, but you might make it as mine." And I like that.
That
That's
is
nice. It's a
way too quick, but a really nice
it is
moment.
way too quick, but
Yeah,
I like the message of like, oh, Obi-Wan's way too strict. Like you're not gonna work under him. I'm surprised I worked under him because I'm like you. Like we're similar.
right.
Where we go against the rules, but now that you're with me, we might make this work. Kind of like I do like that, and
I think,
obviously with context, it does, and it
yeah,
makes it so much better.
I think
Um,
Anakin's introduction in this film, he's just a prick as well at the start.
Yeah,
I just I hate
but
him.
like to be honest, if this is episode 2 Anakin, it makes sense. like
It doesn't though. It still doesn't. Like, because the thing is, I still I think you kind of said this is your Anakin now, right? Like you can buy that this is Anakin
the Clone
in the
Wars
series.
Anakin.
Yeah,
Yeah, if I'm including like the whole show, yeah,
yeah.
like I see him
I
as Anakin more than Hayden Christensen in my
I
opinion.
absolutely cannot get my head around that. I can't reconcile these
Interesting,
characters at all.
interesting.
I really struggle with that.
They are very different, to be fair. They are
Yeah,
different.
I still cannot buy because I can't imagine Hayden Christensen saying these lines. I think the big thing is I think maybe this is what Anakin needed to be in the first place.
If Hayden Christensen never was Anakin, would you buy him as Vader? Like
That's my
this
point.
version?
This is my point is that I still don't buy Hayden Christensen as Vader to this day.
Yeah, I don't either. I
But
don't either. It's
had
nostalgia though, so it's like we
yeah,
accept it,
that's not me bashing. I kind of like him as Anakin, but I don't like him as Vader.
But I think for me it's because he's always been Anakin, and
Yeah,
that's if
same.
you know. But anyway, continue your point.
But had they had this kind of confident, boisterous, dismissive Anakin who is very competent at what he does
Hmm.
and very like has a presence, he's very like sure of himself.
Yeah,
Is that I would buy as Darth Vader much more than Hayden.
because when Obi-Wan's talking in episode 4, this is the Anakin I'm picturing, not Hayden Christensen. Like he's not the general of the Clone Wars and the Obi-Wan's best friend and the best pilot he's ever met. Like I'm getting this from this Clone Wars version, not Hayden. But it's this an interesting. I feel like that'd be a very divided opinion, though. I don't think that's going to be a one-sided argument in general. I'm actually interested to hear Robert's thoughts on it too.
This is like arguing like who's a good Bruce Wayne versus who's a good Batman.
Yeah, and it's like there's no right answer, is there? It's just it's just whatever you prefer.
It's just dumb nerds arguing in a room. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. So I don't like many of the characters in this, to be honest, either.
What about Obi-Wan? Obi-Wan's your boy.
The
Is he done well in
I thought
this?
his dialogue was fucking shocking in this film. I was well, I was like, mate, you've not even nailed Obi-Wan in this film.
Yeah.
His voice even sounded a little because I think he came over from the 2D Clone Wars. He was the
Yeah,
voice,
yeah.
yeah. And I
James Arnold Taylor.
yeah, I much prefer that series to this TV to this
Movie.
movie.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Um, but I don't know.
Do you not like his
Obi-Wan's
little
okay.
banter with the general at the start?
I liked his little like stalling maneuver,
Yeah,
but
I like that's Obi-Wan. It's like
yeah, Obi-Wan just fucking trolling folk. It's totally Obi-Wan.
it's the best.
Um, I think as well. I liked because I had a moment where I was like, wait, why is Obi-Wan doing that and they're doing this? And then I was like, oh, the negotiator. And I was like, I like that they've sent him on to be like
Yeah.
Jabba's negotiator sort of thing.
Yeah, I like the difference between Obi-Wan's the negotiator and Anakin and Ahsoka's the one that's just
He
causing
just pulls a
chaos.
fucking lightsaber on him at the first moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
the other thing
Yeah,
is as well, I think a big part of Anakin, I think just to quickly rein back to Anakin, a big part of what I don't buy about Anakin is that I'd never once buy that Hayden is Mark Hamill's father. And that's not to do with looks, that's to do with character as
interesting.
well. Of like, you know how
Interesting.
you have, oh, it rhymes, it's like poetry. I think I buy this Anakin more as Luke's father than I do Hayden.
Absolutely, yeah,
And I think that's a
100%.
big important part, obviously, of Anakin's character is that he is obviously Luke's father. And I think because you get that kind of Harry Potterism where you're like,
Well,
oh,
it's
you're like your father.
it's one of the only things we really know about Anakin going into the prequels, you know. So
Yeah,
it's that he's going to be Luke's dad. What was Luke's dad like?
yeah, and I don't buy Hayden as Luke's dad. I think that's partly just because he's too young for me. But um, yeah, I think the only characters I actually like in this are Dooku and some
He's
of
good.
Obi-Wan. And I think I like I start to like Anakin as the film goes on. But in the beginning, I don't like him at all.
Yeah. A major issue with the film for me is that I don't know if you know this. Um, it's just a combination of episodes that they planned, and they were like, okay, let's just put them together and release it as a film. That's why the film feels so cut about because you have the Geonosis stuff. Not was it Geonosis? What's it called? The first not Geonosis. The Crystal City. They have the Crystal City stuff, and then they have the Padme stuff later on, and then they have the Dooku stuff after that. Like it's literally 4 episodes put together. That's what the film is, and
And
they've admitted that. They've admitted
this
that.
film
So
feels really fucking long as well. This film has no right to be
for
an
a
hour and
short
40 minutes.
for a short film, well, no, it's not. I guess it's under 2 hours, I suppose. But yeah, like that's a pretty average length of a film, but it does kind of drag on though. It does.
There's not enough in this film for an hour and 40 minutes. That's a fact.
What with the plot
See,
freaking save Jabba's son? Like, yeah,
it's
it's
so
pretty long.
yeah, it's not good. I didn't mind it. Actually, I didn't mind it as much as I thought I would going in because I obviously remembered like some things about it. I
Yeah.
will say a couple of things I really did like is one, Christopher Lee as Dooku.
Yep. Hmm.
Absolute bloody, I fucking love Christopher Lee.
Good stuff.
Everything.
I think the
Um,
replacement they get for Dooku down the line is also passable though as well. I
I think
barely
he's
noticed
good.
to be honest.
I think he's good until you watch this
Yeah.
and you think, oh mate, that would have been sick. But obviously, they're never
Yeah.
going to get Christopher Lee to do like however like 100 odd fucking episodes of
Well,
Clone Wars.
speaking of like, oh, that's my Anakin. For me, this is my Dooku because, in my opinion, in the films they never get to do what they could with Dooku, but in the show they have obviously with being animation, they can do a
Mhm.
lot more with it because it's like freaking what's it? How old was bloody Christopher Lee at the time? Like freaking 80 or something like that. You know, it's like
Yeah,
he couldn't move, like a freaking Jedi. Like they're doing some Alec Guinness bloody stunts back then. Uh, so I love Dooku. And honestly, like speaking about the design of it, I'm really mixed because obviously I know where the show goes and how great the animation looks down the line. I don't think it looks amazing.
there's a few times in this where it looks quite bad actually.
Yeah, and it's like I
Uh,
get it. It's like the first animation they've done, like 3D animation for Star Wars. But
but if it's a movie as well,
yeah, you'd think the budget would be better. But like I said, it's not a movie. It's freaking 4 episodes put together, so it's
but
TV
well, it's got a
quality,
theatrical
not
release as well. So
yeah.
like they knew it was going to cinemas, so you'd have thought. But I think the only one that actually looks bad is Tatooine.
Yeah,
Tatooine looks really bad.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
the background looks like something I made in sixth year at school as part of a project we did for like Monday afternoons animation, and
Mhm.
I spent like 3 hours doing that. It
I'm
doesn't look
I'm
good.
I'm looking at the poster and Yoda's front and center, and he's like barely in this film. I'm like, I'm like, why are they freaking
He also
advertising
looks
Yoda?
greener in this. Do you not think? He looks like a
Uh,
darker green.
I didn't notice, but it's interesting. I liked Yoda's little appearances in this. I thought it was fine. I like his little trolling at the start where he's like, "Oh, him and Obi-Wan always knew that it was going to be Anakin's
They are
Padawan."
just fucking trolls, aren't they?
He's just, they're
Those two are just
so. You know
fucking
what though?
muppets, man.
It fits with their character because they do it
Yeah.
for the whole series. So,
They are actually Obi-Wan and Yoda are actually just the two old men from the Muppets who just troll them the whole fuck.
yeah,
They're just trolling the Star Wars lore the whole time.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think Ahsoka has some moments in here I like, but she's very annoying at times as well.
I find her very annoying.
And I think it's a shame that obviously they didn't know where she was going. Obviously they didn't know that Rosario Dawson's going to take up the mantle, and this is going to be the future of Star Wars now.
Yeah, and like remember, keep in mind, like people are at this point are thinking, when did Anakin have time to have a Padawan? Like, where was she during Episode 3? You know, like at the time it made no sense.
Yeah.
You know, it really didn't, because Clone Wars only takes is a span of 3 years. So it's like, what's happened in between those 3 bloody years with Ahsoka? Obviously, we know now, but again, just judging through this film, it's a lot to digest. You know. What did you? This might just be a prequel thing in general, but uh, this is the sort of first time we get to see the Clone Wars. What's your thoughts on the whole clones versus droids kind of dynamic, like the actual war aspect of it?
Well, we'd seen it in live action before.
Like a little bit though. Like it's like we saw the start of it and then the end of it, but this is like in its
Um,
prime, like in the center. You know.
okay. I think it's
'Cause
really fucking boring.
yeah, I thought, I don't mind this first sort of battle, but maybe it's just because I quite like the city that they're in. Like, it's like a
Yeah.
unique look,
There is some cool stuff.
but overall, yeah, it's pretty bland. It's
It
pretty
does get
bland.
to a point where it is just like beige men shooting at white men.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh god,
and
really? Like,
obviously that's what the show does better as it goes, because you get to develop these characters and you actually
yeah.
start to get attachments to the clones and stuff. The droids never worked for me personally, but I know why they exist. Like, it's part of the lore and stuff. Like, I get it. I've
You know who
never been
does
a
work
fan.
actually?
Go for
I
it.
think Rex works in this film.
I think he works 100%. My favorite part is when he stands up to Ventress, and it's like, wow, like, bro, you're just like, because at this point you just think the clones are just stormtroopers, you know? It's like they're just freaking, like you said, like white guys with freaking guns. But that moment, you're like, okay, he's like, he took a shot at her. You know what I mean? It's like, damn,
Sick.
bro, like freaking fair play. Like, I've got respect, you know. And that was besides Cody, he's like the second
Yeah.
named clone, right? So
And I think he gets a nice moment with Ahsoka as well. And I think to see that and then know where they end up in Rebels together and possibly make an appearance in the Ahsoka show,
oh, are you talking
I
about
think.
the experience line? Like, oh, in my book, experience it
Oh yeah,
ranks.
yeah, I like that. I
Yeah,
cannot because the thing is Ahsoka was quite nippy in this, but
yeah,
hence the name. But the like, there is some like hints of her kind of being a better character than you would expect
right.
based on how annoying she is, like that line. Because you could have her be even more annoying and be like, "Oh well, fuck experience. I'm a Jedi." But she
Yeah,
actually does. She does go like, "Oh well, I better get some experience then."
yeah, yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
there's some little hints there.
yeah, yeah,
I like that.
yeah. But I don't know if that's just because we know what happens though, and we're using what we know to help boost this version of her. You know what I mean? Where it's kind of like, honestly, it's kind of like Luke for me, where if I don't have episode 5 and 6, I don't think I'd like Luke as much as I do, because in 4 he is a little bit nippy. I know that's the point, and it's the point with Ahsoka as well. It's the same arc, you know. But I don't know if that. I don't know. The thing is, it's a franchise, so obviously that's going to happen. You're going to like the
Yeah,
character more after you've seen the arc, but you can. I think it's so evident that Ahsoka is the main character of Clone Wars, though. Like, she's clearly the one they're developing, which makes sense because she's the one that's not in the movies. So of course you'd use the character that's not in the movies to develop in this. Same with Rex; like, he gets a good couple of scenes in this. Honestly, I don't think Obi-Wan's necessary in this film, which is such a shame. But like, he doesn't really do. Like, what does he really do? You
well, to be honest, in my mind, I don't think anyone really is because, like, in my mind, why the fuck? One, Yoda. I kind of like the reason actually Yoda gave, because I was kind of trying to suss that out. I was like, because I'd not seen it in a long time. I was like, why did they actually trick Anakin into giving him a Padawan? Like,
Yeah.
because I guess the thing is that if they told him, "Do you want a Padawan?" he would have went, "No."
No. Yeah.
And I guess that was the point, is they tricked him on purpose to be like, "Oh, give it a shot, and you'll maybe like it."
Yeah.
But I liked the line where he was like, "Oh, I know Anakin's going to be a good teacher, but this is a lesson in him having to let go."
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really great way of,
Oh, you know what? I didn't even freaking pick up on that.
yeah,
That's really good. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I like that.
I thought that was
That's
a really
great.
great idea.
Yeah, because that's the whole point, right? Like when you train the Padawan, you have to let them move on.
Yeah,
It's
and
like, yeah,
that's more because obviously a big part of the prequels is that Yoda is kind of oblivious, but that's kind of a little hint that like he knows that Anakin's
he knows what he's
problem.
doing. Yeah, he
Yeah,
knows. He's not a
he's
freaking idiot.
yeah. I
Yeah,
actually really
that's
like that.
great. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I love
the
that.
other thing was I like their relationship as it goes on as well. Like you said, they have a few moments, but I think they do kind of settle in. I think it's a bit too snarky. Like it's a bit too like, oh, Sky Guy. It's a bit too like, I know it's young kids again, it's young kids, but
Yeah.
obviously I much prefer that more developed relationship as you go on.
Well, as we talked about earlier, this is the groundwork for the Clone Wars show. If we're comparing this to Turtles or Transformers that we
I
just
guess
talked
this is
about,
it, right?
this is but like those are better than this. Like this movie doesn't set up
Yes.
compared to the others. Um, but where it goes, freaking trumps everything they've done. But yeah, it's there's too many like Sky Guy. I hate it. Like I know it's just freaking a stupid nickname, but Snips. I'm not even a big fan of Snips. I
Sky
like
Guy
Snips
does feel
more.
like it does feel like something a 40-year-old man would write, thinking a 13-year-old girl would say to a man,
Yeah, yeah,
rather than a natural nickname.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. It's cringe. It's just
It's cringe.
as simple as that.
That's a very yeah. It's a very long-winded way of saying it was cringe.
It's
Yeah.
cringe.
Yeah.
I don't like the Jabba son storyline, especially because we don't even know what happens after. Like, where's the son now?
Jabba
Like, we
just
don't
ate his
know.
fucking boy or
He
something.
just
Yeah, fuck
freaking
knows.
his 80s child.
Roll over in him is fucking dead. I don't know.
Like, you'd
Um,
assume the show would have expanded on that, you know? Like,
I'm hoping we get resolution in fucking Ahsoka. We get a stinky reveal.
oh, freaking Franz pet Jabba, like freaking
Nah. We get like a secret hut, and
secret.
it's like, oh, Jabba the Hutt's son,
Oh
Stinky.
my god, stinky
He's come
man.
back.
Again, stinky. It's just that. It's so childish. I get it. It's for kids, but it's too much, man. It's too much. Star Wars has always been for kids, and it's not this cringe, you know. It's
Zero the Hutt, isn't it, as well?
Zero. That's annoying, man.
He's not it.
Zero. That I honestly don't like that whole Padme stuff either. I think Padme's fine in those scenes, but I just think it's so long-winded and dragged out for what it is. It's just again, it felt like a episode of Clone Wars where it's Padme's episode, and
The
it's like, okay,
problem is
let's
as
get her
well,
20 minutes in.
even when you say these are 4 episodes of Clone Wars, they don't even strike me as particularly good episodes of Clone Wars.
Well, it's season one. You know what I mean? Like season one and two are not the standard. You
Yeah,
know, like three onwards is what we think of.
but so in terms of Ahsoka, the show,
Yeah.
and this, I like that we now have like a bookend. So
Hmm.
we obviously we have our introduction here, but we also have Tales of the Jedi, which is I guess her birth, right? It's
Oh
her
yeah,
like
yeah, true. Yeah, actually, yeah, I can't believe I forgot about that. Yeah,
so. I'm very, very happy to have Ahsoka go on to be. I know she refused to train Grogu,
yeah,
but I'm very happy for her to be the future of Star Wars, if not the Jedi, or Ezra, or at least help out in that capacity. I would be
yeah, yeah.
really disappointed if they bring all this about and there's not some sort of continuation of the Jedi through that line.
She's because obviously we know what happens with Luke. He does the whole school and it doesn't work out. I really hope she has her own sort of faction that, like you said, has Ezra, Sabine, Grogu, maybe. You know, like those characters go over there, and that's their sort of
Just sub it,
future.
mate.
You know,
Anything, I'll take
because
anything.
that's a great group. Freaking Ahsoka, Grogu, Ezra, Sabine. Like that's a pretty. I know again you've not finished Rebels, so you're not as attached to Ezra and Sabine, but that's a good little group there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And if she's like the sort of Grand Master looking over them, that's freaking great, man. Yeah, so freaking, I'm so hyped for the show. Like, it's different levels, man.
It's a weird thing, right? Because I can't really think of another character off the top of my head that we've seen the literal birth of, and she's been like, or they've been so ingrained in like other properties and just kind of flung around throughout the lore.
Yeah, I was gonna say Luke, but he's been strictly to the to the
Yeah,
movies and like that 1 or 2 episodes in the
but
shows. But
like Ahsoka's been, so her birth chronologically, so her birth is in a spin-off show,
yeah,
like a mini
like
series.
mini short, yeah,
Yeah.
like 10-minute episodes.
You then get her, obviously, her whole Clone Wars arc, which is her as a teenager.
Yeah,
Then
14 to 18.
she
Yeah,
disappears until Rebels, when
yeah,
she's like 30 odd, right?
yeah.
Late 30s. And then
She's 45 currently. I think.
n-
I think that's what
and
I found out.
now Rosario Dawson is taking over as
Yeah,
like the follow on from Rebels.
yeah. And what's your opinion on Rosario Dawson taking over as the new Ahsoka?
I love her, mate. She's
I think
great.
she's great, man. 100%.
Fantastic.
I don't honestly. That is like next level casting because I think that would. I think that was such a hard assignment.
And a lot of people
To
didn't like it as well when they announced it.
yeah.
There was backlash against it.
Oh, she's too tall, or she's But to honest, I feel like it was divided. I think there was. She definitely had their supporters
Yeah, yeah, well,
because
definitely.
some people were just saying get Ashley Eckstein, the voice actors, and I'm like, nah, man. Like that's she is the voice of Ahsoka, but
I
she
think
does not look like her.
you really get away with it as well because I think you're lucky where you have that big gap. Because obviously Ashley gets away with being like the teenage voice,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then you have the more mature, like Rosario Dawson.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I think I really like where she is, and I really like that you have that opportunity to have that with a character. Where,
Mm.
cause like you say, Luke, but we knew Luke when he was 18, and he was already like we knew him from like 18 to what 25, something like that,
Uh, yeah, yeah,
24 maybe, something like that.
something like that.
Mate, we're the same age as fucking
That's
Luke in Return of the
crazy.
Jedi.
That's
Fuck man.
crazy. Oh,
Oh, we're such failures, man. We didn't even save the galaxy.
god damn
The
it,
fucking
kid.
but yeah, I really like that you've had that chronologically though, where I know there's birth and all that, but like you've had her as like you started off as she's 14 and now she's older
Hmm.
instead of doing the reverse with Luke and stuff. I really like that, and I really like being able to see that and have at least track that throughout the series. And obviously, that's going to be a problem for some people because definitely an older generation than us have not seen Clone Wars, so they don't have that context. And she's been in
Yeah,
Mando. She obviously she got thingy to Mando as well.
yeah.
Um, but
That's the tough thing because we have friends who haven't seen Clone Wars and Rebels, so they've missed Ahsoka's whole arc. They've only seen her from Mando, for example. So it's like, are they really going to gain from watching the Ahsoka show? Like, what are they going to enjoy that as much as the fans will, or is the Ahsoka show going to be able to stand on its own 2 feet? You know, and I think that's the big question.
well,
Like, is it going to be able to do that?
I don't know because I don't know. It's hard because I think it could turn out to be a what's his fucking name? Like the best Star Wars show they've made.
Mando.
Cassian, Andor.
All right, yeah.
Andor. I think Ahsoka could quite easily turn out to be an Andor.
But like, you don't need to know Andor though. You know what I mean? Whereas like Ahsoka, they're referencing Ezra and Thrawn and all these
No, I know, but that
characters.
means
You know,
nothing to anyone who hasn't seen Rebels.
that's what I mean though. But if they're using all these references as the plot, why are people that haven't seen
But
it going to care?
from my say like my dad's point of view of Star Wars, who only watches the mainstream films,
Yeah,
but has seen The Mandalorian. If you're looking for the Mandalorian audience that haven't seen Clone Wars, which I think is a sizable, maybe not majority, but a sizable bunch,
yeah,
are they? Because if they're not aware of Rebels or Clone Wars, how are you going to get them in the door? And I think probably Hayden Christensen might be the way to get them in the door.
well, funny enough, they released a trailer
He's in the
today.
trailer.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Oh yeah.
that's great stuff. I'm glad they didn't show him because I don't
Yeah.
want to see him. Save that. But I'm glad it's a little bit like extra confirmation that yeah, he's going to be in this. I guarantee it's only 1 episode, but I'll take it. but I'll take it. It's probably going to be better than the Obi-Wan show. Like,
And I'm assuming you've heard some leaks about Ahsoka.
I've heard some leaks. I don't know if we should discuss them just for people who don't want to
We
know.
can do a spoiler. We can do a if you don't want to know anything.
Well, why do we save it to like the very end when we're going to like sign off then and just talk about
Okay.
the little stuff? Just yeah. Is there anything else we want to bring up about this movie though before we get into that?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say earlier. I think I kind of was gonna say it. It kind of annoys me because there's a few times in this film where they're like, "Oh, good point." Anyway,
Yeah.
sort of thing where they're like, "Oh, that's a problem," and then they just move to the next scene and they're like, "Oh, that would be a problem, but hey." Um, and one of those things was kind of, I don't even think this is one they referenced, but I was a bit like, why are they sending Anakin with his first new Padawan on the first day? Why are they sending him on the super important mission to go rescue Jabba the Hutt's son, knowing he's like a volatile motherfucker? And he literally just basically slurs out the Hutts on video to them as well, where he's like, "Oh man, I fucking hate these Hutts," and
Yeah,
then they use that against
they
him.
literally enslaved him. Like, why
Yeah,
would you send him to freaking
and
deal with it? You know?
part of it as well is I know he goes back to Tatooine, but a big argument for Vader not going to Tatooine to find Luke or Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan hiding on Tatooine is because Vader doesn't want to go back to Tatooine because that's where his mother died.
And it reminds him of his past self, which he's trying to
Yeah,
remove himself
and
from.
I feel like they never really touch on. Obviously, that's probably too much for this, but they never have that moment of like, oh, well, I guess I know actually that I'm an idiot. That's one of my positives of this film is the Dooku fight
Yeah.
where he's like, oh, your mother died here, and you're angry, and he's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I am fucking angry. I like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I think it's such a weird. They never really justified why Anakin was on this mission and why no one else was. I guess they have their little spiel at the start where they're like, the Jedi are overrun and they're
Yeah.
low on
It's
resources. But I'm like, really? Like,
honestly, it's a problem the whole show has because they're on every mission, and it's like, why is it the same three freaking characters that are getting sent on these missions?
I get like Obi-Wan. I get Obi-Wan, but they know Anakin's a problem.
Yeah,
Like, why are they sending him to go get the Hut?
because he gets the job done. Yeah, in this case, it doesn't make any sense. It's too
Especially with the new
personal.
Padawan.
Yeah,
Because they're like, oh, the problem with this is if we lose the Hutt's trading routes, fun. If we lose the Hutt's trading routes, then the war will be in the favor of the Separatists. It's like you're gonna rest all that on Anakin, like young Anakin.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
you're not. You're gonna send Obi-Wan, even if he's the better negotiator. You're gonna send him instead.
Oh, yeah. Obi-Wan's the very good negotiator. Of course, you're gonna
Yeah.
send him.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. Again, like, you could say, "Oh, we're looking too deep into it's a kid show," but at the same time, Star Wars has always been for kids,
again,
and I'm going to judge them all the same. So
one thing that did bother me a little bit that is completely just a nitpick to fuck. I don't know if you picked up on this. I feel like if I say it, you're gonna. Is Ahsoka just takes out 3 Magna Guards like none.
right, yeah,
I'm like, even in episode 3, Obi-Wan, he was like unaware of how to defeat these things,
yeah,
and like he only really fought one at a time, and that's
yeah.
all they could really fight because they were distracted. And Ahsoka just takes out 3 with a baby on her back, and I'm like, nah, I don't really buy that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where it's like you need to give her something to do, and you want to up the
Throw
stakes
one,
rather than
just
just
do
have
one.
one.
Yeah.
I know, but like the stakes, like we know one, like we've seen Obi-Wan take out
Yeah, but
more than
Obi-Wan's like
one.
40. She's 14.
Yeah, yeah, but the stakes are higher if there's more, you know. So it's
I know
like
what
for
you
the
mean. Just
movie, it's
yeah,
like, you
not
know.
admit it.
But yeah, and it's like
But
why would they only send one, you know?
I think
But
I think once they get off the planet with the stinky little bastard, I think once they get off that planet and then you have like Dooku being like, "Oh, they've taken the baby."
yeah,
I'm like, that's a bit dumb because like, why the fuck would the Jedi want to take a hot baby? But then
yeah.
I guess they tie it into, oh, it's a trap so that they can kill you. I thought that was all right. But I
Honestly,
think the
I
film,
think that's a big problem with the whole Clone Wars. To be honest, is that the Separatists are clearly bad guys. It's like they're trying to convince neutral people that the Jedi are bad, and it's like, mate, you've literally got a red lightsaber. Like,
you're literally the bad guy in the script, man. Like, yeah.
you know. But again, it's just part of the lore, and it's like, I
But
get
I
it. But
definitely think the film takes a I think it definitely gets better as soon as they kind of get the wheels in motion. Obviously, you have the Padme stuff on the side, but like I think when you have Ahsoka, Anakin, and Dooku on Tatooine,
Mm.
and like Ventress, I think those are the strongest parts of this film. And I
Yeah,
actually, I really enjoyed the Dooku Anakin fight. Actually, I think that's a really strong point of this film.
yeah.
I thought it was quite inventive. It didn't look the best, but it was quite inventive, and I liked that they did the whole "this is where your mother died," and he was like trying to like play on him and that, and then he just fucking kicks him over the dune, and he's like, "Oh, I'm off. I'm stealing your bike."
And that's like Dooku does that in episode 3 as well when they're fighting, and that's why Anakin beats him because he's like fueling his dark side. You know what I mean? So it's like, well,
Yeah,
after a while, it's gonna bite you. And one other point is I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I genuinely don't know if I don't know if this is common. I love the Twilight ship. I love the look of that design. The one they steal to fly.
is this the one that crashes on the Tatooine?
Yeah, yeah, it's like the box with the two wings.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that ship. I think that looks so good. I guess to me that's original Star Wars. It just looks like
right.
a pile of junk, but that's what I love about it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I do love that ship, and I'm glad they use it in the show a little bit. They get rid of it though, which is a shame. But yeah, I do. I'm a big fan.
I did a few times recognized a few of the Lego sets I used to have as a kid. So I
Mm,
watched this film, and I definitely had I had Lego a few Lego sets from this film, but I never had any from this series. I don't think,
right.
because I definitely had the droid ship that takes down the Twilight, and I had the ship at the very beginning that Yoda comes in on and stuff. But I will say actually, one thing I did notice about this film that was fucking incredible was the score.
Always, man.
The
Always.
score, no, 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 but even above Clone Wars level, like series level, I thought the score was fantastic.
Have you
There's
got
one,
the? Is it? Oh, go on. Yeah.
oh yeah, there's one scene in particular where I think it's when they're kind of storming the compound originally to get the stinky hut, and it's just before they open the door and they go and walk in as a group, and the score there is fucking banging. It's
Mm,
so good. It's really good there. And then I didn't notice it before then, and then I think that scene I was like, shit, that was really good. And then
yeah.
I started to notice it more as the film went on. But from that point on, the score is really fucking good in this film. I might actually
Yeah.
have look at the score on Spotify, but
A,
it's
po-
actually really really good.
a point is with us compared to some of our friend group members is that we really appreciate we really
We're snobs.
a score like a film score really stands out to us. Like you'll notice it, and that's what we kind of look for it too, kind of thing. Whereas some others will be like, oh, I don't even like remember anything about the score, kind of thing. But to me, that's always been important. I know it is for you as well because we talk about it all the time. Um, but yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. If I'm trying to remember the what you're talking about, like the score, but I'll trust your opinion because
Damn
I mean
right.
it's Star Wars, so it's like it's rare when a Star Wars thing
Yeah,
doesn't have a good score. You know what I mean? Did
that's
John
good.
Williams do this? I'm guessing not.
No, no, no. It was a man named Kevin Kiner.
Well, Kevin Kiner, fair play to you,
He
bro.
did the series as well, or at least the majority of the series.
Oh, very good.
But yeah, very very good.
Does the Ahsoka theme show up in this film? I don't know if you know what the Ahsoka theme is, but surely it's like she gets a never seen. I can't remember because that's one of my favorite PCs. But if it did, sweet. But I can't remember. Um,
Honestly, couldn't tell you.
but yeah, well, I can't think of anything else to talk about with this film. But I'm down to talk about these little leaks you're wanting to
Leaks. Okay,
discuss. So
so
if nobody wants to freaking
yeah, if you
potential leaks anyway.
if yeah, they might not be true, but if you don't want to hear anything about Ahsoka, just leave now. We might have even just spoiled the trailer for Hayden being in it. I'm sorry, but
To be fair, if it's in a trailer, I'm not consider that a spoiler.
it's fair game.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. So this is your warning. If you don't want to see spoilers, we're going to wrap up the episode after this anyway, I reckon. So
yeah.
thank you for watching. You can scroll to the end to be a part of the poll on
Oh,
Spotify if you want, and you can vote on the next one. If not, we're going to talk about leaks. And yes, so the leaks I've heard have been that they're going to use the World Between Worlds in
Oh
this
boy.
series. And I can't lie, I fucking hate that idea.
It's interesting because I love the way they use it in the show, but I don't want them to overuse it because that is a tricky situation you can get yourself
Because
into.
I've heard the word timeline being thrown about,
Yeah,
alternate timeline, and I'm like, nope,
yeah,
no, none of that, please. No, that's not Star Wars for me. In the same way that time travel is not Indiana Jones, timelines just don't belong in Star Wars to me.
yeah,
There's just no. You have a canon, you have the canon, and you
yeah.
have
It's too
extended
messy.
universe. They don't intersect, they don't interact, they are different.
Yeah,
And there's no alternate timelines, there's no, oh, what if Vader didn't, whatever. It's like, no, he did. He did. Because I've heard, I don't know if it's a vision, fair play, but I've heard the thing of there's going to be a scene of Ahsoka fighting Anakin on Mustafar.
and if we, bro, even that if it does involve timeline, the nerd in me is gonna freaking nut over that. Like,
Honestly, if that happens, I'm probably going to check out.
so we're just going complete opposites here. We're
Yeah,
just
I that is too far for me. If it's a vision, if it's like a forced vision and she's like haunted by it or something like, oh, what if I was there? Like, what could I have done?
yeah,
Could I have saved him? Fair play, good.
yeah.
But if this is actually she goes to the world between worlds and she's like she sees a because I've heard that they filmed two scenes for Obi-Wan, that they had a dead Obi-Wan's body on the floor,
Mm,
or they had his cloth, as in he died the same way he did in episode 4. He disappeared.
right.
And I've heard they shot that both ways. And to be honest, if his body's there, I don't know what makes more sense, right? Because in the cloth, their argument for filming the cloth version is that oh, there's a destined outcome for all these characters, and even though it's an alternate timeline, they're still destined to have these roles. So Obi-Wan becoming one with the Force needs to happen. So he has to be the cloth version because he has to evaporate into the Force.
Yeah,
The problem with that is one, he hasn't learned how to do it from Qui-Gon or Yoda.
true.
So that kind of breaks the lore a bit of how that works. The problem with that is, as well as you kind of, I don't like that Destiny idea. If you film it with the body version,
Destiny's always been a thing in it, though. The whole
yeah,
tools
well,
and all that
exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
But well, if it's an alternate timeline, what does Destiny mean in an alternate timeline? Is it just a different Destiny, or like does it mean fuck all?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if you have his body there, that means that the Destiny has kind of fizzled out, and that it's not the same one that was in the original universe.
yeah,
Like the same, like they're going to be knock-on effects. And I'm a bit like, if this is real, why? Like, why bother do? Why do you need to do that? I kind of like the idea of her being a bit of a gatekeeper for the world between worlds, maybe seeing
yeah.
if it
That'd be sick. Yeah, yeah.
like she's a protector, but I just
But the thing
nah.
is, like in the Rebels, she's the one being protective over it. She's the one telling other characters, like, let's not mess with this. Like, this is way beyond freaking what we're dealing with right now. You know what I mean? So honestly, I I hope it's not the world between worlds. I do hope it's a sort of flashback or dream sequence.
You know,
Um,
the only thing I'd be okay with them doing in the world between worlds, and I think you know what's coming.
go for it.
Erase, erase.
Erase what
2014
comes.
onwards, apart from Rogue One, everything erase. If they erase the sequel timeline, I'd look, mate. Ahsoka would be my favorite character.
They're not, mate. They're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. As much
Thing
as
is,
they like it, it's not.
if they involve timelines and they don't do that, why bother? That's the
Yeah,
only reason you should do that.
exactly. Mate,
Uh,
they're making a Ray film down the line. It's like they're not freaking pissing about with that. Like it's happening.
but
So
yeah, the other thing is as well. I think I'd rather just. I'm more invested in the what's going to happen with Thrawn and how's the Ahsoka Thrawn thing going to happen.
here's my take. I think Fran's going to be such a minimal part of this show, and it's going to be more of these Sith users, whatever part of the lore they're in, the orange-looking guys. I don't think Fran's going to be in it a lot, to be honest, which is fine because set him up. You know, just build upon it. You know what I mean? Um, so I like the Ray Stevenson character. I think he's going to be the main villain. I'd be really surprised if it is Thrawn, but
Well,
I'll take it if Thrawn is the main. I'm not going to
obviously
freaking
this
complain
is,
about that.
like you say, this is set up for the Filoni movie, right?
Yeah.
The thing is I would much rather this focused on being a good setup for that, so that this at least has legs, rather
Yeah.
than let's kind of be the setup for that, but also be this timey-wimey thing.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I like a lot of the stuff in Rebels so far. I haven't gotten to the World Between Worlds yet, but
Yeah, that's later on.
I know
Yeah.
of its existence. And what I've heard is, I don't know, I don't like it
The,
that
the
much.
the the way they use it is really good though. It's like what's happened's already happened. Like you have the ability to change it, but the fact that it's not already changed dictates that it's not going to happen, kind of thing. You know, it's like it's already comprehended the future version of you going to make that decision and known. It's hard because I don't want to spoil stuff for you because I want you to
Well, I already know,
experience it.
I already know what happens in the World
Like how
Between
he
Worlds.
takes out Ahsoka and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like the way I view that is that she
Was always
was
taken out.
always going to be taken out, like destiny wise. Like if we're talking about that, like in the wills, like this that people talk about. I don't know much about the wills, but like the wills apparently like write the universe, right? And that's just always supposed to happen in that case. My take on it as well is that Ahsoka, I don't know if it's canon or just my head canon, but when she went back into the real world in my canon, she skipped up. I don't know why she would, but she skipped the years to ensure she didn't interfere with the years she was supposed to miss. You know what I mean? I suppose if she was supposed to die there, she shouldn't have been a part of it at all. So that's the tricky part. But I don't know. I feel like yeah, I don't know because it doesn't really explain why she's not a part of the original trilogy. But we're getting to some Rebels talk now. But honestly, if I was to put money on it, they're going to use the World Between Worlds. I think
That
it's
was going to be
too.
my next question. But
It's going to be too tricky for them. I think you're going to piss people off, essentially, if you
you're
do
going to piss
it.
me off.
But I love like you've introduced it, like it's part of the lore now. Like you need to stick to it, but it doesn't mean you need to go back to it. Like it's done. It's like the Mortis arc. Like it's done. You don't need to go back to it. Like it's done. Like it's too tricky if you go back. So
Yeah.
I'm happy for it to be
Oh,
some
mate.
visions or
We didn't even
something.
mention the best fucking character. Not only could this school be fucking Ahsoka, Sabine, Ezra, Grogu, Ray. Yeah, if she's there, fair. Um, mate, fucking Cal Kestis. If Ahsoka meets Cal Kestis, I will not even in this series, but at some point. Oh Lord,
I think they will eventually, not in the series though. They're
not
not.
yet.
They're not going to do anything with Cal until Cal's caught up to the current timeline.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
They're not going to do it. As sick as it'd be, they're not going to do it because
If they,
it
if
would ruin it.
they, this is a fucking message to you bastards over at Dice or not Dice. What's her name? Respawn.
Respawn, yeah,
If you kill Cal Kestis in that third game, oh
and not have
Lord.
him in live action.
Oh
Oof.
Lord, there's gonna be fucking hell to pay, sister. Oh my
Unless he's
God.
in Andor 2. Then fair play.
Andor, Jesus.
Andor season 2.
But holy moly, you cannot give me an S tier character and then just kill him off. He needs to stay. He needs to stay.
Especially when he's
Yeah.
based off the real actor. Like, come on, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
you're this is a given. But again, they were never the game
Oh,
was never planned to do well, so
oh,
it's like
wait.
who knows.
But nobody's gonna know who he is. They're gonna love him. You're gonna make a series about him, and they're gonna love him.
Mate,
Oh,
the
mate.
main villain's Thrawn. Like nobody knows who he is unless you've watched freaking
Yeah.
Rebels. So it's the same argument.
Or
It's
if
the
you're on
same
Twitter.
argument. Or if you're on Twitter, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man. Anything else you want to talk about, or
There was actually something, but I've forgotten it again. So no.
what the Anakin thing, or
No, it was to do with
no?
Clone Wars.
Oh, I see. Oh well, I think this has been a good episode, though. I think we've nailed a lot of topics here.
Covered a lot.
We did
Uh,
cover a lot.
yeah. So, well, give us some feedback on this if you're watching. Do you like the format? It might be. This is obviously a bit rusty. We're a bit rusty on the format. Maybe it'll be tidied up a bit, but
Yeah, we'll figure it out as we
we'll
go.
figure out.
Aye,
Come along for the
we'll
ride.
just try new things.
Yeah, but I think I'd like this to be the kind of If this could work, I'd like this to be the format.
Honestly, like I've actually enjoyed this format, so
Yeah,
I'm happy to continue
I
this
have
way.
too.
I was worried they were going to linger on a lot of the films, but I think we gave it decent times each. So yeah.
And if you'd like a full episode again, stick it in. I'll stick a little poll on Spotify of the films we talked about if you want a more.
Oppenheimer.
The other thing is,
Oppenheimer.
yeah, vote open. No, mate, we're doing an episode whether you like it or not. But I could do a solo episode on that. Fuck you guys.
Mate, go for it.
The
Freaking real to real.
You're ready in it. That would be a good one actually.
That would be.
The other idea I'd had was at the end of the. I probably should have said this in the format at the beginning, but if you're here, you've earned it. You've earned this little snippet. As well as what you'd like us to do a video on that was maybe in the video today that we didn't talk enough about. We can also look forward and be like, oh, we know Ahsoka's coming out. We know, say, well, Haunted Mansion's out now, but none of us have seen it, and we didn't talk about it. But say, like, that's an example. So if there's something up and coming, we'll look up those things. We'll stick those in the poll as well, and you can go, oh, that's coming out. That's what we want to see. And it's a bit of feedback for you as well, and
Exactly.
us. So it's quite nice. But yes, this has been a bit longer than I expected, but I'll take it.
Makes it with the amount we've talked about. I think it adds up.
We've earned it, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Adds up.
nice little. I'm actually glad I watched the movie, even though the movie wasn't great. I'm glad we watched it before Ahsoka came out. I think it was quite nice to see.
It's good to see
how
what do you call it? Humble beginnings.
Humble yeah, or really fucking annoying beginnings.
Freaking Snips, mate.
Yeah.
If she gets called Snips in this, I'm gonna cry, man. If Anakin calls her Snips, that's it. I'm getting nostalgia.
I'm gonna cry of cringe. Crying of cringe. But
yes.
yeah, so
expect an Ahsoka series freaking coming soon.
2 episodes on the 23rd. Go watch
Oh.
them, and then come watch us review them because you know you want to see it. You know you want to see it. We're on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, it's quite handy. You know, you stick it on in the background when you're studying. You don't have to keep the screen on. Yada yada yada. Watch on Spotify. We'll have our Spotify added in the description if you're on YouTube, and if you're on Spotify, we'll have the YouTube added in the description because we're on YouTube and Spotify.
That's right.
Yes. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for talking, Brendan. And we hope you enjoyed at least part of the segment, if not all of them, because we quite enjoyed them as well. So we hope you like the format as well. I like the format. Brandon likes the format. If Robert doesn't like the format, he's gone.
Dear.
And I'm confident he's not going to watch this episode, so I'm allowed to slate him.
Yeah.
But yes, so hopefully this is the format going forward. We'll nip and tuck it a little bit, you know, give it a nice facelift. But this will be the rough format, and hopefully we have 3 people on our rough format at some point.
Yeah.
So, hello, Robert. And yes, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, leave in the comments what you want to see. Touch that poll on Spotify. And we are Dunzo.
Okay.